45 degrees and sunny on our way up to 50 in the city. Good morning. I'm Lynda Lopez. Wins News Time, 10:30.
Good morning. I'm Kevin Rincon. Well, while we wait for official word, we all felt it. You're not alone. The ground was shaking moments ago, likely an earthquake here in the city. We've gotten calls and messages from folks on Long Island, Jersey, all over the city, from Queens, Brooklyn, a sizable one for sure, because it lasted for a little bit longer than we're normally used to feeling the ground shake around here. Again, likely an earthquake. We're working to confirm that status, but we felt it, so we thought we should tell you. WINS News Time, 10:34. We're getting a little bit more information on the earthquake. Confirmed a preliminary magnitude of 4.8, centered in Lebanon, New Jersey. Certainly felt here in the city, in Manhattan, through Brooklyn, Queens. We've gotten calls from folks out on Long Island, all throughout Jersey, of course, where it's centered from. It was a strong one. It was first detected at 10:23. A depth of about 1 kilometer, as we're working to find out some more about this earthquake that we felt here in the city. We'll have more on that throughout the day, for sure. You're not alone. All news, all the time, now on 92.3 FM.
The News Watch never stops. This is 1010 WINS at 92.3 FM. You give us 22 minutes, we'll give you the world.
Good morning. 45 degrees with a bit of sunshine at 10:40. I'm Kevin Rincon. Here's what's happening. We got an earthquake. Preliminary magnitude 4.8 centered in Lebanon, New Jersey. Was felt from the city to Long Island to Connecticut. Even some folks saying there were some aftershocks. We'll get into that in just a moment. The drone strike that killed aid workers in Gaza under investigation by the Israeli military today and fired 2 officers. 2 random attacks and robberies in Corona, Queens a few weeks ago, minutes apart. The thieves used credit cards at stores in Brooklyn. Cops need help tracking them down. The TSA admitting hundreds of folks slipped through security at airports across the country last year. And Disney is planning to crack down on password sharing starting this summer. Right now, we're seeing some sunshine. We're still getting that chilly breeze. It's going to feel like it's in the 30s throughout the day. WINS News Time, 10:41. Traffic and transit on the ones with Karen Stewart.
Well, as we check what you need to know about the bridges and tunnels, the inbound Georgia upper level is 45 minutes. The lower is 40. The outbound Georgia is 20. And the inbound Lincoln and Holland are 15. Now, the reason why the GW bridge is 40 to 45 minutes is because of an earlier accident on the eastbound cross Bronx at Webster. Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. So we're going to be in much better shape there. Those numbers eventually will start coming down at the inbound GW bridge. But for right now, we're stuck with those 40 to 45 minute delays. Southbound West Side Highway at 58th Street, still with emergency construction that goes back to about 79th Street. The delays. 3 lanes are blocked at 58th Street, and the northbound FDR accident up at 106 is gone. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. The Yankees home opener against the Blue Jays. The gates open at 11 in just about 20 minutes. We're keeping an eye on things around the stadium for you, and traffic and transit every 10 minutes on the ones, and we'll keep you updated as things start to back up a little bit around Yankee Stadium. Southbound Cross Island Parkway by Northern Boulevard. We've got reports of an accident there. There are still delays into Northern Boulevard that go back to the Throgs Neck Bridge, and mass transit looks very, very nice with no major problems to tell you about. Our next report is 10:51. I'm Karen Stewart, 1010 WINS on 92.3 FM.
WINS News Time, 10:42.
Breaking news now on 1010 WINS.
We got an earthquake. The U.S. Geological Survey says it's a preliminary 4.8 magnitude quake that was centered in Lebanon, New Jersey, and felt throughout. We felt it here in the city in Manhattan. We got calls immediately from folks all over the place, from Connecticut to Long Island to Jersey. Our Glenn Chuck checking in. He's been at Yankee Stadium ahead of the home opener for the Yankees. You felt it.
Yeah, and actually, I was traveling out by Brooklyn in the meantime, Kevin, and there was some construction work next to me here where I am in Borough Park. I thought that's what was happening, but this wasn't the kind of wave type of earthquake that sometimes it feels almost like a wave going underneath your feet. This, actually, you felt things moving and rattling. I just got off the phone with Mike, who lives in Astoria, who's a 1010 Wins listener, he texted me from a story we had done years ago saying he was putting on his gear to go to the Yankee game when he saw plates literally falling off his shelf. That's in Astoria. I talked to my friend Steve in Tribeca. He was getting into an elevator. He could feel it. West Orange, New Jersey. I got a few texts from there. In fact, my sister, Kevin, who lives in Fairfield County, not far from Bridgeport in Connecticut, said they really felt the same type of feeling. It was more like a rattling than that wave feeling. So it's being felt all over. You pointed out, Kevin, about Lebanon. For people who aren't familiar, you should be. I'm from Jersey. We'll talk it up. It is Hunterdon County out in the western part of the state as you head out towards 78. So frightening time, 10 to 15 seconds. I think is about the time, Kevin, that this lasted. But what you said, a 4.8 has been confirmed.
And Glenn, Governor Hochul's team says they're assessing. FDNY says right now no initial reports of any damage. Just talk through the emotion that you felt. We felt it for much longer than we normally would feel an earthquake around here. We're not prone to this sort of stuff. So to feel it for 10 to 15 seconds, that's not normal.
No, it's not, Kevin. And I think, again, to circle back to my buddy Mike in Astoria, I think when you feel even 15 seconds, it does seem like a lot longer, especially when you're in the middle of an earthquake. It seems like it's maybe, he thought it was 45 seconds. I said, there's no way that's the way it was going on. I think sometimes these things feel it. I can't remember the exact year. It was probably more than a decade ago. I was in the newsroom with you guys at the time we felt one. And again, that felt like a wave. This is more of a rattling. I think we probably, Kevin, will hear some sort, I don't want to say damage to buildings or anything, but certainly people I've spoken to say that things were rattling inside their house, a chandelier maybe just slightly moving. In fact, I'm getting a text from my daughter who goes to high school in Bergen County. They've actually moved people outside of the building just for now because the kids were pretty shaken up. So you're going to get a lot of reaction to this in these next minutes and hours today, Kevin.
The earthquake was felt at 10:23. The U.S. Geological Survey, which tracks earthquakes, provides updates for us in terms of where things happen, the magnitude. They're revising this, saying it's a 4.7 that was centered in White House Station, New Jersey. As we get this information, we update you with what we get, and that's what the U.S. Geological Survey is saying. Nonetheless, regardless of where it was centered, we felt it all over the place. We'll, of course, keep you covered on this as we work to find out more. 4.8 now. They just literally changed it to 4.8 White House Station semantics, but we're trying to get this all figured out for you. It started at 10:23. Wins News Time, 10:53. More now on the earthquake. A 4.8 centered in White House Station, New Jersey. The U.S. Geological Survey has a thing called a shake map. It was felt as far south as Virginia and as far north as the Canadian border. Deborah Bird is a listener in Flushing, Queens. Deborah, you felt it. What did you experience?
Well, I was home in my apartment on the computer, and I felt the floor shaking. I'm like, what's going on? Thinking that, somebody's doing something downstairs. But it was the walls were shaking. The whole apartment was shaking. I'm like saying, well, let me look. I jumped to my feet. I wanted to see if there was anything being done on the apartment building because the whole building was shaking.
What was
like,
your instinct?
wow.
What was your instinct
Never
in that
jumped
moment?
that before. Then when I got back on the radio, I heard that it was an earthquake, and I'm like, wow. It was kind of It was kind of scary.
Deborah, what was your instinct in that moment once you felt everything shaking and you realized that it wasn't any construction work?
I don't know. That's the time I turned on the radio to see what was going on because, I didn't see nothing in the street for it to cause that shaking of the building. And I'm like, I'm wondering, if it was going to happen again, maybe I should run out into the street. Maybe I'll be saved there.
A very natural reaction. Deborah Bird joining us. She was in Flushing, Queens. Our Sharon Barnes Waters, an employee here at 1010 Wins with us. You were in Gutenberg. What did you experience, Sharon?
I was on my laptop because I'm working from home, and all of a sudden I saw my laptop start to shake. I saw the lamp starting to shake. And I looked around. I said, I'm on the 28th floor. And I said, something can have hit the building. But I've experienced this before some years ago. And I said, I think this is an earthquake. I think this is an earthquake because I didn't see any, looked out the window. I didn't see anything. And I said, yeah, this is an earthquake. And so I kind of ran around and made sure that Things were not out of place. So I felt it, and I wasn't frightened like I was the very first time I thought it was an earthquake, but I did see everything shaking in my room, especially my laptop and my lamp.
Yeah, that's good for you. I'm on the 10th floor. I ran out of my edit booth. I felt the shake. I didn't know where to go. 28th floor, that's petrifying.
Yeah, and it's, there's a gym. I ran downstairs to see if everything was okay down there because my husband was down there swimming. He had no knowledge. Everybody in the gym on the treadmill, they just thought, oh, nothing's going on. He was like, something happened? I was like, yes, there it is, earthquake. Like, they felt nothing, that on the 28th floor, things are shaking. Things are shaking here.
That's Sharon Barnes joining us, who helps us out here at 1010 Wins. Again, the U.S. Geological Survey, a 4.8 centered in White House Station, New Jersey. They do have a shake map that they put out, which lets you see where reports are coming in. As far north as Toronto, seeing reports of shaking all the way down in Richmond, Virginia. It certainly had an impact. Governor Hochul's team says they're assessing any potential reports of damage. The FDNY says no reports of damage that they know of just so far. We'll, of course, make sure to keep you updated as we work to find out some more about this earthquake, a sizable one, 4.8 magnitude quake. Wins News Time, 10:57. Wins News Time, 10:58. We're continuing our coverage after the earthquake about 10:23 when it was first reported. It is not every day that we feel the ground shaking all throughout the listening area for quite some time. Reports of 15, 20, 30 seconds. It felt like a whole lot longer. We have another listener, Simeon, who's checking in from Manhattan. What did you experience?
I'm actually work from home, and I was sitting at my desk, and there was this intense shaking. I'm on the 11th floor, but it's the top floor in Alphabet City here. And my initial thought was, oh no, this is like the condo in Florida. It stopped after like around 20, 30 seconds, I'd say, half a minute. But was a little bit shaken up because I thought, I hope the building is, nothing's happened to the building. Then around half a minute later, I felt a slight aftershock. Then I got a text from my husband in block letters, earthquake. So I thought, oh, okay, it's not the building. This is an earthquake. But it was pretty intense. I've never been in an earthquake like that.
Talk to me about your phone. I mean, it's one of those things that we use to communicate, but in these moments, I know my phone immediately got messages from folks all over. What were the interactions? I'm assuming folks reached out to you to make sure that what they felt was real.
Well, yeah, that's, I mean, like I said, I got a text, from my husband, like around, a minute later saying in block letters, earthquake. So I thought, oh, okay. So, I figured this is okay, but it still is a little shaken out because I didn't know if it was real, and I thought maybe it's construction next door or something, but that was a pretty big earthquake.
Even though it was a couple of seconds, can you talk about how you're feeling at the moment, even now? There was a sense of adrenaline rush when we felt it here in the newsroom.
Yeah, I'm still a little shaken, and like I said, because I could feel the build, because I'm on the top floor, I could really feel the building just like swaying. And like I said, I did have a moment of panic, which I'm still recovering. I thought, oh no, it's just like that condo in Florida. Is the building going to collapse, right? So, yeah, I'm still a little shaken up here.
Simeon Spear joining us there. He was here in Manhattan who felt it. We're going to have continuing coverage for you on the earthquake. You're listening to WINS-FM, New York City. My colleague Lynda Lopez taking over as we continue this coverage of the 4.8 magnitude earthquake felt here in the city.
All news, all the time. 1010 Wins at 92.3 FM, New York.
Good morning. 45 degrees in the city, and here's what's happening. As you've been hearing from our Kevin Rincon, yes, that was an earthquake we all felt. A 4.8 magnitude one. It was centered just west of the city in New Jersey, but shook the whole area. There are no initial reports of damage, but Mayor Adams is saying his team is still assessing what impacts it had at this time. Folks in Baltimore, Philadelphia, Connecticut, and other areas of the East Coast also reported feeling the ground shake. Well, Winds News Time 11:01. Let's get a check of traffic and transit on the ones. And over to Karen Stewart.
The southbound West Side Highway, 58th Street, still has that emergency construction, believe it or not. 3 lanes are blocked, and we've got southbound delays into the area that go back to 72nd Street. Very, very heavy. I'm Karen Stewart, 1010 Winds on 92.3 FM.
Well, you might have just gotten that alert on your smartphone. We finally got that alert saying to everyone that it is a 4.8 magnitude earthquake. That's what we just felt last hour that shook the whole New York City area. Our Glenn Schuck is on this, and he's joining us now live. Glenn.
And just checking with the NYPD as well, just to in terms of damage, we had this wind and rain, right, Lynda, in the last couple of days. We're worried about trees coming down. And there's concern that maybe with this rattling that some building facades may have come down. We haven't had any word of that yet. But again, that's some of the immediate concern that the Office of Emergency Management is going to be looking into, based on the weather that we've been having. Now, just looking at some of the other notes I'm getting here, we just heard from the Staten Island Borough President. He says no immediate damage that they're aware of, although one of the city council members from Staten Island, Joe Borelli, was tweeting out that he had some damage at his house. We're going to follow up on that as well. Now, the texts I've been getting, I'm sure you've been getting them into the newsroom, and we're telling our listeners here to take a breath and weigh in with us as to what they endured. But I've heard from folks as far away as Vermont. Heidi up in Albany texted me that they felt it there, and Vermont as well. Lebanon, New Jersey is where this is centered, in Hunterdon County. Now, I also heard from Matt Lugo from Astoria. He was about ready to head out to the Yankee game.
I felt like a big shaking, like my whole house was shaking, and this time I felt like a lot of things were moving and some things fell in my house. And Yankee opener, I'm trying to go to the game today, and I'm a little bit shocked because wasn't expecting it. And all my neighbors came outside their houses and their apartments and was just talking about like what just happened. Everyone's kind of like in a little bit of shock.
So Lynda, by all accounts here, again, this is hundreds of miles in every direction from where this was centered in Lebanon, New Jersey. And again, I'm just getting some additional information here from the NYPD that, again, they're going to put out in cooperation with OEM to check on building facades. So you can imagine a city this big, there's going to be a lot to check, but no immediate word of any serious injuries or extensive damage at this point. But for sure, millions of people felt this, Lynda.
That's right, Glenn. And of course, as we were saying, they're still assessing the situation. It's so early in the game here that we can't know what really the impacts are yet. Glenn, here in the newsroom, I actually felt the entire studio shake. I had computer monitors shaking and everything happening. How did you feel it?
I was actually in my car, and we were just talking about this with Kevin Rincon here a moment ago. I believe the last time I was in the newsroom, about a decade ago, it felt more like a wave coming through, not the rattling maybe that you experienced. Now, when I was in my car when this happened, it also seemed to feel like a wave where I am in Borough Park here in Brooklyn. They felt tremors, they said, at a school here, and I'm going to hopefully talk to some of the kids that are here. Again, I'm just getting some more information from places like Yonkers. They've put out a public safety alert. They're saying no structural damage in Westchester at this point. The Rockland County executive just messaging me as well, so we cover all the bases here, saying that he's urging people not to panic. This is from Ed Day, the county executive in Rockland, and that they're assessing the situation too. But again, it looks like, at least hopefully at this point, Lynda, it was something that almost everyone felt here, but maybe not extensive damage except for things like maybe plates falling off. My friend Lou just texted me from Hackensack as well. Yeah, this is the great part about radio and 1010 Winds, and everyone's weighing in with us as to their experience. Lynda, my friend Lou from Hackensack, saying they're going to take a long lunch here and maybe go have a drink. They're pretty rattled from what just happened here. So I think the message we want to send out, again, preliminary, Lynda, it doesn't look like there's anything damage-wise, at least extensively. No injuries that we're hearing of, but that could certainly change. And we're going to stay on top of it and keep making phone calls.
Yeah, I got a text from a friend in the Bronx who summed it up very succinctly. I did not like that feeling of the earthquake shaking the room. That's our Glenn Schuck reporting live. And of course, we had the Yankees home opener scheduled for today. And our Juliette Papa is in the Bronx. She's right by Yankee Stadium. Juliette, tell us what you felt there.
Actually, Lynda, we didn't feel anything here. I was outside speaking with fans. Nothing moved, nothing shook. And believe me, I have been in Yankee Stadium during playoffs and World Series when you literally do feel the building shake. But we didn't get anything. However, I have been hearing from friends of mine, people in Roslyn, Manhasset, Whitestone, and Great Neck, and they have all felt it. A friend of mine in Roslyn said his house shook. He was worried it was coming off the foundation. So that was pretty intense. So right here in the Bronx, it is business as usual. In fact, the Blue Jays are just taking the field now for warm-ups and batting practice. And opening day signs are here up on the scoreboard. And the fans are just beginning to enter the stadium. And nothing happens here. In other parts of the Bronx, as you mentioned, it occurred. But I recall, as Glenn Chuck mentioned, about 10 years ago, I was in Lower Manhattan when that earthquake struck. And that was like an undulating, we were in a news conference with the Manhattan DA. And it was in this sort of fortress of a building, and it felt like the fun house where the floor was undulating. You really actually got a little dizzy feeling that because you were on uneven footing. So I can understand the experience of people that are feeling it. But this section of the Bronx, solid, nothing happens here, and we're assuming this game is going forward. Lynda?
We always said Juliet Papa was under some kind of lucky star. Is there any suggestion or any indication that the Yankees might be assessing some things or maybe making any tweaks to what might happen today?
You know, we usually there's notifications and they put something out, and we have not seen that as of yet, unless there are some, weird aftershocks that they're anticipating. But right now, I'm looking out on the field business as usual, checking my phone, and we usually look at monitors here for any sort of update. And there is nothing. Perhaps they are discussing it. Even speaking with the fans, nobody felt anything. I mean, they heard about it. They saw the notifications on their phones, but they're all lined up ready to come to the game. So there'll be, some celebration, at least here in this part of the city, Lynda.
That's our Juliet Papa. She is live at Yankee Stadium. And we're going to go now to Brad Jones from Oceanport, New Jersey. We know that this earthquake centered just west of the city in Lebanon, New Jersey. Brad is in Oceanport, and thanks so much for joining us. Tell us what it felt like to you in the initial moments when the shaking started.
Well, thanks for having me on here. I was actually sitting here just eating some breakfast, and then all of a sudden, as we all say this, all of a sudden, my breakfast bowl is shaking, the chandelier is shaking, my kitchen plates are moving, and I'm like, this is literally going on for about 5 seconds. So, immediately once it stops, I'm like, my wife's in the laundry room. I'm thinking maybe she blew up the washing machine. I walk outside looking for neighbors, going, what the heck just happened? It was a very strange feeling.
Did you? Sorry, go ahead.
So I'm thinking maybe it's just my house.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people had the sensation that maybe it was like some kind of construction going on or some kind of jackhammering. Exactly.
That's exactly right, because there's construction near my house. I looked outside, and then my wife comes running down the stairs. What the heck was that, Brad? So you literally get a little shook up from being shook up.
For sure. When you stepped outside of your home and you just sort of took a look around or went to see if neighbors were out, did you notice anything in the ways of like anything falling, any kind of like small damage?
No, not on this side, but I did see a few neighbors step outside yelling, "What happened? What was that?"
And in your own home, no notice of any damage or anything breaking or falling.
No damage. I think like most people, you look around your own house to make sure nothing happens, but nothing happened. But it is a very strange sensation, and we don't get these here, so
yeah,
kind of scary in a way, I got to tell you.
Fairly often. That's what most people that we're talking to, our 1010 Wins listeners, are reporting, that really it's an unsettling feeling when you first start realizing
it's an unsettling feeling. We can't imagine it being in a higher number earthquake. Is 4.7 or 8 was frightening.
Have you gotten any notifications? We've seen some iPhones just ringing with some warnings. Anything from the town or anything from there locally in New Jersey letting you know about what conditions are?
Nothing in my. I'm in Monmouth County, so nothing came in real quick. My daughter works for the state police, and she got me a quick message that something just happened.
And you were home with family in the house at the time, or alone? You said you weren't alone.
Me and my wife, and then that's when everything just started rattling and then we both kind of yelled at each other. What the hell just happened?
We're here in the city, and you're just outside of the city, actually a little closer to the epicenter there. Were you hearing from other folks who got in touch with you who were further away, who mentioned that they might have felt that?
I have a friend up in, actually one of my friends is in the Lebanon area, and I just texted him. And, but yeah, I haven't felt any, I haven't seen any text messages from anyone else further away, but, it's certainly, it's like you said, it's been felt by many, many people, so this is an experience for us.
I'm sorry, and did you say you heard from your friend in the Lebanon area who had felt that?
I haven't heard back. I texted him because he lives in Lebanon, so I'm waiting to hear from him. But like I said, for all of us, it's kind of unsettling. But it's something we all can all experience together and talk about.
We will be talking about this. That's Brad Jones from Oceanport, New Jersey. Thank you so much, Brad, for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much.
And we're actually hearing from a listener in Deer Park now, in Deer Park, Long Island. This is Joni Jones. Thanks so much for joining us, Joni.
Thank you for having me.
So the epicenter was west of the sea, all the way in New Jersey. You're in Deer Park. Tell us what you felt in your area.
I was actually in my car getting ready to go into CVS, so I was in the parking lot. And my entire car just started shaking. It was honestly almost rocking. I thought that I started looking around at the trees. I was like, okay, Mr. Wind, stop rocking my car. But the trees weren't moving. So then I started to look at the windows of the stores behind me, and they were actually shaking.
Oh, wow. Did you get out of the car at all? And did you try to go into the building, into the CVS?
No, I waited because I was trying to figure out what was going on. I thought there was something going on with my truck, but I just waited, and then it stopped after a few seconds.
Did you try to drive right after that?
No. I went into the store, and they were the managers in the store were talking about it.
What did you notice in the store? Was there any kind of impact from the shaking or from the earthquake? Did they have items falling or any kind of damage?
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that of that magnitude. Nothing was displaced or anything.
How did you feel? Did you feel nervous about even getting out of the car, going into a building, or what might be happening?
I didn't feel nervous because once it stopped, I was okay, because this is actually the second time that it's happened in Suffolk County. It happened about 15 years ago. So I wasn't too nervous about it. Once it stopped, I was okay.
Do you recall from having experienced the last time thinking that you might know exactly what was going on, just not being sure?
I think I thought of it at first, not until one of the managers in the store said something about what it was. So once she said that, did you feel that? Did you feel something? I said, is that what that was, an earthquake? Because I definitely felt it.
That is Joni, who is joining us from Deer Park. Joni, thank you so much for telling us your experience.
You're very welcome. Thank you again for having me.
And we're going to go now to Sarah from New Jersey. We know the epicenter of this earthquake was in Lebanon, New Jersey. Sarah, I understand you were on a horse when this happened?
Yeah, so I was about 10 minutes drive from the epicenter in Califon on my horse in an indoor riding arena. And let me tell you, there are many unsafe places to be during an earthquake, and I think that being on a horse is number one among them, because you cannot tell a horse what's going on. We didn't know what was going on, and he just took off at a gallop. There were actually two other horses in the arena, and they started careening around like a merry-go-round. We were helpless to stop them. It was probably a top 3 lifetime frightening moment for me.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine. And so when you are on the horse, first of all, we're glad you're okay. When you are on the horse, how did you get to the point where you were able to slow it down, or just was he moving the entire time the ground was shaking?
Yeah, they were all galloping around, in a panic. They're flight creatures, so when there's something they don't understand, they flee. I've been riding 38 years, so I put all that to use to haul back and calm him down. But it was certainly startling. We initially thought the boom was so tremendous. We were in an indoor arena which shook. We thought it was coming down on top of us. And then we theorized it was maybe a fighter jet doing an exercise, or maybe Donald Trump's golf course is near there. We thought maybe it was some sort of Air Force One landing.
Sure. Many people thought it was construction or some kind of construction explosion. We're getting a lot of those reactions from people around the area as well.
Yeah, just to illustrate the level of the noise. And unfortunately, people, you can tell them actually calm down. It's an earthquake. You can check the news, but you can't tell that to a horse. So it was a lot of good boy, and you'll get lots of carrots later. Sorry this happened to you.
And you mentioned you were indoors. Did you see anything that amounted to, anything falling or any type of damage, any people having to, dodge to be safe or go to other areas?
No, and now I'm driving around the area, and sort of miraculously, for the level of the tremor, it seems like there isn't a lot of damage beyond pictures falling off the wall, that kind of stuff. But no, it doesn't seem, from my vantage point in this neighborhood, which is very close to the epicenter, there was much physical damage. The emotional damage to my horse, we'll see.
Oh, that I'm sure of. Did you hear from folks who are farther away from you in different areas who said that they felt the shaking, like in a really significant way? And how far away?
Yeah, I'm from New York City. I come out here to be with my horses, and everybody's been texting me. My building shook, my glass fell off the table, that kind of stuff, all the way back in Manhattan. And I told them, well, you think you had it rough. I was on a galloping horse out of its mind.
And was everyone in the arena and in the area with you okay?
Yes, miraculously, everybody calmed their horses down, gave them lots of lumps of sugar after, and we're all just fine.
What was the initial feeling like for you?
I'm still sort of shaking. I think the earthquake was magnified by the earthquake of a Dutch warm blood horse that I was sitting on. So I still have a stomach ache about it, but it's nice to know that I think we're in the clear with just a few aftershocks.
And are you thinking back to when have you experienced this before? We were talking to the listener right before you who was actually out on Deer Park, Long Island, who remembers just about 2 decades ago when this happened before. Did you have a memory of that one that sort of contributed to this one?
No, absolutely not. There's a reason I don't live in California, because this is terrifying. And I have not experienced it in memory in New York. And it's certainly not one I'll forget, being, as I was, on a galloping wild animal for a few minutes.
Well, Sarah in New Jersey, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you offering your perspective. And we're glad everyone's okay and the horses are okay.
Yeah, we're all doing well. Thank you so much for your great coverage.
And we'll just update you right now. Again, it was a 4.8 magnitude earthquake that hit just west of New York City, centered in Lebanon, New Jersey. Of course, we're getting statements in from various local officials. New York City's Mayor Adams, putting out a statement saying that the mayor's team is looking into the impacts across the city at the time, though it appears to not have had major impact, but we can't say that yet. They are still assessing. And Mayor put out a reminder that in the case of an aftershock, drop to the floor, cover your head and neck. This is the good advice that you should follow. Take additional cover under a solid piece of furniture, next to a wall, or in a doorway. This was a 4.8 magnitude earthquake, but there is definitely the strong possibility that we will have aftershocks that will come in Jersey or be felt through the city area. And we know that we're getting additional information into the newsroom right now. There is a ground stop now at our local airports, a ground stop at Newark and JFK. That's until 11:30. This is just under an hour ago just about an hour ago that the earthquake was first felt. So until 11:30, just about another 10 minutes, they'll have a ground stop at JFK. And Philly and Baltimore had a ground stop also, but that has now been removed. And we're also learning that people as far away as Philadelphia, Baltimore, even up in Connecticut, felt the impacts of this quake. And we're going to go now to correspondent Sherry Preston. She is in Glen Ridge, New Jersey, and she joins us now live. Sherry, good to talk to you, even under these circumstances. Tell us what you felt when the earthquake first started shaking everything.
And good to talk to you, Lynda. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you great, yes.
Okay, great. What was going on in New Jersey is I was working from home today, and I was doing 2-ways actually on the cicadas that are coming out later this spring, and suddenly you could just feel it I'm in my basement, a little studio in my basement. You could just feel it rocking. And, there's a lot of trees in this part of Essex County, and we've had them fall before. So I know what that sounds like. And it was like that, but it just kept going. It just kept going and going. And I went upstairs and I asked my husband, I said, hey, he goes, I think we just had an earthquake. And we used to live for a long time in Carbondale, Illinois, along the New Madrid Fault, which is, due for a really big earthquake at this point. And we have felt small earthquakes along there, but have never felt one out here in this area. And all I could think of was being in New York City if this was happening. I just happened to be home in Jersey today, and it was quite something. So they're checking out the Holland Tunnel, as you mentioned, Lynda. They've got the ground stops going at some of the airports. Mayor Adams is going to talk in about half an hour at noon. There was word that the fire department was being dispatched to Long Valley, New Jersey, for multiple structures with reports of some damage, but we haven't confirmed that yet. And like we know, the epicenter in Whitehall Station, New Jersey, middle part of the state, is about 30 miles from where I am. A little bit further from you if you guys are in New York, but you certainly felt it, and, it seems like as things are calming down now, but it was really something you're just not used to experiencing out here in the Northeast.
And you mentioned you were working from home today. What did you see? Was there anything that even amounted to damage or anything concerning that happened just right in your home or your area?
No, Lynda. It was just felt like rumbling. We do have a Mexican statue that my husband was out in the other room, and he said it's made of tin, and he's like, I could feel it shaking as a big truck was going by. It almost sounded like a storm was going by as well. I don't know if that would have been enough to wake somebody up if they were sleeping, but I do know on the U.S. Geological Survey they have a little questionnaire that says if you felt this, go ahead and answer a few questions. And some of the things they're asking is, what did you do? Did you drop to the ground? Were you inside? Were you outside? Did it wake you up? And all those questions, they want people to know because they're timing it. But it's really funny because the first thing I did is I emailed the desk at ABC News and I asked Otan, who's the editor there on Today, and I said, well, boy, did you guys feel something? And then he said, yeah, we all felt it here too. And then the next thing you know how these things happen. Everybody has to reply all, so you've got 450 people on an email chain and everybody going, I'm in Yonkers, I felt it. I'm in Montclair, I felt it. It's like, we get it. We all felt it. But now it's very comforting to know that it wasn't that big, and we're going to be assessing the damage to see just how much is out there.
That's our Sherry Preston reporting from New Jersey. Sherry, thank you for all that valuable information. As Sherry mentioned, Mayor Adams is going to be giving a briefing right around noon. We will carry that live shortly after that. Governor Hochul will be giving a briefing, which we will bring to you as well. Let's go back now to our Glenn Schuck, who is in Brooklyn. Glenn.
Yeah, my phone's been ringing off the hook, as I'm sure the newsrooms has as well. I just spoke with Mindy. Imagine this, and I recorded some sound that I'll share in a couple of minutes, but she was on a 7th-floor apartment in Bay Ridge. She said when the dishes started falling off the shelves in her apartment. Now, imagine that, 7 floors up in an apartment in Bay Ridge. She said her first instinct wasn't to take cover. She made a run for it, running down the stairs, out into the street and into her car, which I said, I'm not sure if that was exactly the safest place based on what was happening. But again, she is okay. This is the kind of stories we're hearing. People really shaken up, not experiencing anything, at least to this extent before. Obviously, Lynda, we've had earthquakes before in our area. Matter of fact, I was going to mention I was out in California in '94 for the Northridge quake out there. I was actually up by Monterey earlier in my radio career, my young career, when I think that was a 6.7. I remember that being longer. This, where I was today, seemed like it was stronger but shorter, if that makes any sense. It was more not of that wave-type feeling. It was a really strong rumbling and shaking, and it really was pretty frightening just by the calls that we're getting in. We mentioned earlier, and we'll hear more from the mayor, I'm sure, that the city is going to check a lot of the building facades. So many of the buildings here are so old in a lot of the boroughs, all 5 boroughs really, so they're going to have to really carefully check all these building facades, especially after the storm we had, to make sure even the smallest crack obviously could lead to bigger issues. So, again, there's going to be a lot of inspection to do. We'll hear a lot of what the city has planned. Of course, as you mentioned, the mayor's going to talk. We're going to hear from Governor Hochul. The governor is in Albany, where they felt it. We've had calls from Vermont. We've had calls from Maryland, Long Island, etc. Everyone seemed to feel this in one way or another, Lynda.
And I actually spent a fair amount of time in LA myself and have been there for some minor earthquakes like this one. But I think, Glenn, I would agree with you that for a 4.8, it felt shorter, but definitely more intense.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I remember back at to the Northridge one. I felt it was like I said, it was almost like riding a surfboard. And I remember the hotel I was in had wooden shutters, and they kind of shook as well. 3 different people that I spoke to on the phone have called me, and again, that's the good news about radio, I guess, too, and our listeners are so dedicated to us. They've all been reaching out to me and to you, I'm sure, and all in the newsroom, wanting information and sharing pretty much the same story again. Intense rattling that seemed very frightening. They went out into the street, people sharing stories of things that definitely did fall off the shelves within their houses. It doesn't appear to be any extensive damage, but again, that's going to take a long time to find out. I found it pretty interesting, too, that school kids here in Brooklyn that I saw running down the street seemed to be completely happy anyway, couldn't have cared less that this had happened. So that's always a good thing, too, to see that everyone seems to be fine, Lynda.
Yeah, that carefree youth. That's our Glenn Schuck reporting live from Brooklyn. And we're going to go now to 1010 Wins listener Grace Pena in East Rutherford. As we know, this earthquake was centered west of the city in New Jersey. Grace, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us what you felt when it first hit.
Hi, thank you for having me. I was actually in the middle of class. I was in an exam, and we all felt it. We all looked at each other, my classmates, my professor. We were all very confused. We thought it was the construction outside. It was definitely very powerful, but it was really short. Immediately after, my professor sent us down to the basement, and she dismissed us from class.
What school do you go to?
Felician University.
Did you notice that there was anything that looked to be like there might be damage, or that there was anything that happened as a result of the earthquake there?
There was definitely no damage. The school sent out texts to everybody saying, there's no reported damage so far, but that they'll keep us updated. My roommate, actually, I texted her right after. She was asleep, and the earthquake woke her up from sleeping.
That's Grace Pena, who's joining us from East Rutherford, New Jersey, where they felt the earthquake at Felician University. Grace, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we are expecting briefings from both Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams to be coming up shortly. We'll continue our live coverage now and send it over to Kevin Rincon. Kevin.
Lynda, good afternoon. I am Kevin Rincon, and we have continuing coverage of the earthquake felt here in the city and beyond. Some early figures, 42 million people plus felt it. So even though it's, this sort of stuff happens on the West Coast, it is not normal here. It does happen from time to time. This was a 4.8 magnitude earthquake centered in White House Station, New Jersey. That is central Jersey, not far from Bridgewater. We're expecting to hear from Governor Kathy Hochul in the coming minutes here. Mayor Adams set to offer an update at around noon. We can tell you we've been reaching out to folks to see if there have been any reports of damage, and so far not seeing any reports of damage, which is a positive. NYPD Transit says no specific damage. FDNY similarly no damage to report. NJ Transit has been doing inspections at bridges. That's been delaying some service. Airports have had ground stops, notably JFK and Newark. Some of those have been lifted now after they got a chance to inspect the runways. In 2011, you might remember we did see an earthquake down in Virginia. That was a 5.8. This one similar, but a lot closer to home. It is 11:31. Take a check of traffic and transit with Karen Stewart.
Newark Airport confirming a ground stop as of 11:05 this morning. We are checking on the other 2 major metropolitan airports to find out about possible ground stoppages there. We've got mass transit issues, as Kevin touched upon. Rail service on NJT is subject to 20-minute delays both ways due to bridge inspections following the earthquake. Newark light rail service is suspended system-wide due to track inspections and the threat of seismic activity following the earthquake. And the River Line light rail service is suspended on NJT both ways between the Waterfront Entertainment Center and Trenton due to track inspections going on there. No word on any of subway problems going on with relationship to this earthquake. Keep it locked to 1010 Wins. Traffic and transit every 10 minutes around the clock, and we'll keep you updated. And I just wanted to update you on this Yankee home opener against the Blue Jays with the game starting at 1:05. We have very heavy traffic on the Deegan right now, southbound from the Mosholu Parkway all the way down to Yankee Stadium. The McCombs Dam Bridge is like stopped across the span, and 161st Street is really very very busy from Morris Avenue now out into the stadium. Keep it locked to 1010 Winds for traffic and transit surrounding the Yanks home opener right here on 1010 Winds. Traffic and transit every 10 minutes around the clock. We're sponsored by MajorWorld.com. I'm Karen Stewart, 1010 Winds on 92.3 FM.
1010 Winds AccuWeather forecast. Meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
We'll see a gusty wind for the rest of today. Clouds, limited sun. Even a shower will pass through the area at some point this afternoon and this evening. Our high temperature right around 50. And later tonight, mostly cloudy with a cold breeze and will drop to about 40. Tomorrow, much like today, breezy, chilly, clouds, breaks of sun, maybe a shower. Best chance in the afternoon. The high just 52. Clouds and some sunshine on Sunday, brisk and quite cool with a high of 54. Better weather on Monday. Should be good for the eclipse, too. Mostly sunny, warming up to 63 in Midtown and could be near 70 on Tuesday. In Central Park, mostly cloudy and 45, humidity 47%, the wind out of the west-northwest at 16, gusting to 30. Repeating the current temperature 45, the real feel is 40. We're headed to 50 in Midtown. I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg on New York's weather station, 1010 Winds on 92.3 FM.
Winds news time, 11:33. As mentioned, we are waiting for an update from Governor Hochul. She's up in Albany, felt the earthquake, as many of us did. We've been hearing from so many of you, our listeners. Steve North, he's in Roslyn Heights. Steve, what did you experience?
Well, I was having a nice, calm breakfast here on the North Shore of Long Island when my table and dishes started shaking. We do sometimes have big trucks coming down my street, so at first, obviously, I thought it was that. But then the rumbling got stronger, and I actually had the impression of my house sort of moving up and down, almost coming off its foundation. And I have to say, I felt earthquakes in L.A., in Hawaii, in Israel, twice here in New York over the years, but this one somehow felt different.
It certainly felt a whole lot longer. I've experienced them for a couple of seconds. This felt like 20, 30 plus seconds.
I think it was not more than like 15 or 20 here. But it was very unsettling. And, you know, we like rock and roll here on Long Island, but not like this.
In terms of communications, one of the first things I got was so many folks reaching out just to make sure that they weren't going crazy, that they felt what they thought was an earthquake. Again, I had mentioned this was something experienced by about 40 plus million people. It's not every day that you have so many people around here experience the same thing at the same time.
You know, it's interesting what your first instinct is, and mine is to go to the front door and look outside, which is sort of silly when you think about it. But I immediately turned on radio and TV because I was sure, and Facebook and social media, because I knew this had to be a widespread event, and it was a little wider spread than I thought.
Steve North joining us from the North Shore of Long Island. Thank you for checking in with us. We heard from Sid as well. He's a listener down in Monroe Township, New Jersey. He's about 30 miles or so from where the quake originated from.
I thought something hit my house, the way the house was shaking. But then, you know, I realized that this has got to be an earthquake. The floor, I felt it in the floor, like a very low vibration.
There is a map that the U.S. Geological Survey puts out in terms of where they have seen reports of shaking. Very different from what happens after an earthquake on the West Coast. On the East Coast, it is felt much, much further out. There have been reports of feeling this earthquake as far north as Albany, all the way even across the border to the north in Toronto and all the way south in Virginia. There are folks in D.C. that say they have felt it. Here at home, Carmen, she's in Flushing, checked in with us as well.
Oh my God, I was in my kitchen and I really didn't know. I thought I was having maybe it was my brain or something, or I was having a medical emergency, but it lasted so long. Oh my God. I didn't know what to do. I'm still shook up. My heart is going a mile a minute.
We know the president has been briefed. We're waiting to hear from Governor Hochul at any minute. The mayor is set to provide an update at noon. One of the positives we've gotten so far from this is that there haven't been any reports of damages, but folks have been checking in. We also heard from Dr. Klaus Hans Jacob. He's an expert at Columbia University.
And it was a very shallow earthquake, only at about 1 kilometer depth. And it shook up the entire New Jersey, New York area. Myself, I'm in Rockland County. I felt it quite a bit. Lasted probably for, I would say, 5 to 10 seconds.
Our Juliet Papa, she's at Yankee Stadium. They have opening day there. There is nothing, Juliet, that is going to stop the fans and the team from playing this game.
No, absolutely not. It is business as usual here. The Blue Jays are now warming up, taking some batting practice, but I did go out and start asking around. In fact, there's some reports that some of the players, some of the Yankees did feel it on the field when they were warming up. They said the earth was shaking under them in the outfield. So I asked some fans, and this is what a couple of people are telling me. Excuse me. Did you feel this earthquake at all?
Yes, I did a little bit.
You did?
Yes.
And where were you?
I was downstairs, first level.
Really? And what did it feel like to you?
Just a little bit of rumbling and a little bit of shaking, but nothing too major, nothing too big.
And under your feet? What did you think it was?
Honestly, I thought it was the train initially at first because the train is right above us. So it's definitely unknown, uncommon to New York. Very surprising that we had an earthquake today.
So that's been the sentiment here. People were hearing from their friends and relatives. Another woman told me she was on Metro North and she said it was sort of like some bump. Something didn't feel right. And she didn't know what that was, but she thought it was a little unusual. And then sure enough, she starts seeing, the bulletins on her phone that there was an earthquake. So she and her friend were a little nervous, saying, well, I'm glad it wasn't worse, because if you're on the train, you don't want to get derailed. But right now it's happening here at the stadium. And the sun is trying to peek out. The fans are coming in. Other fans that I spoke to here said they were hearing from other friends and relatives out in Comac, Long Island, and in New Jersey, and all over the metropolitan area where they were getting reports, and people were asking them what they felt. We do know, and I'm seeing this on X, formerly known as Twitter, that certain sections of the Bronx have been feeling it as well. But I didn't feel it. I'm sitting here on the second level right now, and I did not feel it here. I did not feel it when I was downstairs, but people said on that ground level, there was a whole lot of shaking and undulating going on. Kevin?
Yeah, consider yourself lucky. I was in the newsroom. My hands got cold. I really thought the building was going to come down. It felt so long. Luckily, again, no reports of any damages, so we can laugh about it. Our Mac Rosenberg, he's checking in. He's in Stamford, Connecticut. What was it like where you are?
Well, Kevin, the reactions here in Stamford, I got to tell you, they run the gamut, ranging from, the dog slept right through it, so, I just hung out, to running out of a work meeting and taking the dog with you. Those are a couple people I spoke to. I was just on the phone at the time in my apartment on the third floor of the building, and this was just one big vibration. I think I did start freaking out mildly. You just don't know what's going on because we're so not used to anything like this. But the whole thing was really only 20 or 30 seconds before you know it, it was over. But again, the building was shaking, it was vibrating, and I was just thinking about what this could be. Earthquake was the farthest thing from my mind. So I'm thinking about the wind, because there have been some really windy days here in the last few weeks where you can hear the wind howling. But again, nothing like this where the building is actually shaking. And so I didn't really know how to react in the moment. And before you knew it, it was all over.
Yeah, first thing I thought was earthquake. That wasn't the last one, Mac. I got to be honest. What's been the reaction from folks? Again, this is one of those things where so many people immediately have an instinct of wanting to share with others and kind of go through what they experienced. What was your phone like? Did you get folks reaching out to you?
Yeah. I mean, I had people, there were some people who didn't feel it. I actually spoke to a woman on the street here in Stamford who did not feel anything. She has a newborn kid, and she says she was so focused on that. So I guess that means she's a really good mother, that she didn't feel anything. Another woman, as I said, the dog did not move. And so she didn't really react either, because so many people, if they have dogs, they kind of just are trained to react to whatever the dog's doing. And the other guy, he was in the middle of a work meeting. Everybody on the work meeting felt it too, because they were in the city. He was up here in Stamford, and he ran out of the apartment with his dog. So it's just all about that instinctual thing, like what are you going to do if all of a sudden you are shaking?
Yeah, Mac Rosenberg. We've been telling you that Governor Hochul is going to be providing an update. She is doing that now. Let's listen in.
People felt it on Long Island and all over the state of New York and indeed the East Coast. We're taking this extremely seriously, and here's why. There is always the possibility of aftershocks, and I'll get to that in a moment, but we have not felt the magnitude of an earthquake of this level since about 2011. Actually, I was in Washington, D.C. at the time, and my apartment when I was in Congress was severely damaged. We felt those effects all the way up to Buffalo, New York. So these are wide-scale possibilities. This is one of the largest earthquakes on the East Coast occur in the last century. So I immediately directed my emergency management team, the second we received word of this, to start doing damage assessments, any life in danger, and finding out whether there's any bridges or tunnels that are compromised. And so that was the first reaction. You'll be hearing from the team that has been working on that. I also immediately spoke to Governor Phil Murphy to offer any assistance and to find out what is happening in his state, which again was the epicenter. Our teams have been in constant communication with the mayor of New York. We also spoke to the MTA to ensure the integrity, the structural integrity of the subway system, the Port Authority, and I want to announce that right now JFK and Newark airports are on full ground stops to assess any potential for after effects. And we've been in contact with the utility companies to make sure that the gas and electric services continue. I will report that Amtrak and MTA are on full schedule, no disruption there at this time. Been in communication with the White House. They reached out to us. The Deputy of Homeland Security Advisor, who's actually with President Biden right now surveying the damage in Baltimore, called us, and I believe they felt the effects even in Baltimore. So it's been a very unsettling day to say the least. But the White House offered any assistance. Senator Schumer reached out, offered any assistance. So right now it's most important that we have our structural teams out there, our engineering teams, surveying our bridges, our roads, any area there could be a fault line that is not easily detectable, to make sure that passengers on our rails as well as our commuters are safe. Assessing all state roads, Commissioner Dominguez is taking lead on that, making sure our state roads are safe. Major transmission lines and dams, because you don't always see the effects of a small crack that actually could develop into a real major problem. And we're also encouraging all the municipalities throughout the state of New York to assess for any structural integrity concerns. At this point, heading into an hour and a half after the effects, we've not identified any life-threatening situations, but we are certainly asking our local law enforcement and emergency services teams to be on guard for that as well. But again, we are going to be reviewing all potentially vulnerable infrastructure sites throughout the state of New York that is critically important in the aftermath of an event like this. Now, again, I have a few safety tips because New Yorkers are not accustomed to having earthquakes in our state, and everyone should continue to take this seriously. If there is an aftershock, people are encouraged to drop and to cover and to hold on. Drop to the floor, cover your neck, and hold on to something that is sturdy. Take caution near any damaged buildings. Again, we don't have reports of damaged buildings at this time. It is very early in the assessment process. But if there is an after effect, please stay away from buildings, that, especially our high rises. If you hear shifting or any noises, unusual noises, leave your home. Go outside. You are safer there than in a building that could be crumbling around you. Inspect your home for damage. Check walls, floors, doors, windows, staircases. And if you see any damage at all, you may need to relocate while the event is going on. Again, check your own gas lines and water lines to make sure that your family is safe. So stay connected and informed. I will say this, especially with all the national news about what happened in Taiwan with that deadly earthquake just this past week. I think there's a high level of anxiety around earthquakes. The magnitude, which Catherine Garcia and Commissioner Bray will explain, that was a 7.4 magnitude in Taiwan. Again, we are 4.8, and they'll explain the difference. But that's why we're going to continue to take this very seriously and make sure that we continue to update all New Yorkers. So Catherine Garcia, our head of state operations, you'll hear from first, and then Commissioner Jackie Bray, head of Homeland Security.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor. I want to reiterate that we have no reports of damage at this time. And that immediately all of the infrastructure agencies activated their policies and procedures to deal with this. because while highly unusual in the state of New York, we do actually have fault lines. This was significantly bigger than ones that are typically felt in the state of New York or occur and actually are not felt. That is because earthquakes happen on a logarithmic scale, which means that a 3.0 is 10 times worse than a 2.0. So a 4.0 is 10 times easier than a 5.0. So every one of those makes a significant difference in what you will experience and what the damage could be. In addition, we are also tracking whether or not there's any increase in hospitalizations, as well as whether or not there's any increase in vehicle accidents that has not been reported at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Bray?
Not much to add about the governor and Director Garcia covered it. I would say we did see an overloading of cell circuits in the New York City area immediately after the event. We've been in touch with AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. Their networks are clear now and back up and working, and we have opened the state's emergency operations center. We're at a level 3 to monitor impacts and reports that come in. We've seen one gas leak in Rockland County, but other than that, there don't seem yet to be major infrastructure impacts. But we are in touch with the counties. We'll stay in touch with the counties all day. Thank you.
All right, let's do some on-topic questions. Governor, has there been any contact with the Indian Point facility in Westchester and any concerns there?
That's part of our analysis of all critically important infrastructure. So yes, the communication has gone out, correct?
Yeah, we're in constant touch with both that facility and our other facilities. There's no damage reported at Indian Point. We wouldn't expect damage at this time, and we're in touch with Westchester, and we'll stay in touch with Westchester.
Governor, can you just say what you were doing at the time that it hit, and what you felt and what was going on?
No surprise to anybody here in the Capitol. I was meeting with my senior team, talking about their late night working on the budget, and we were talking about how we're going to move the budget forward today. So literally sat in the room next door. People felt different degrees of movement in the room, surprising, and all of a sudden everybody's cell phones start lighting up and describing what it was. So we were literally right here working on the budget and getting a budget done that includes a once-in-a-lifetime housing package may be the only excitement event we expected this week. So this was rather unanticipated. You cannot plan for this. There's no early warnings. There's no weather service that can tell you an earthquake is imminent, and that's why everybody was caught off guard. But fortunately, here in the state of New York, we are masters of disasters. We know how to handle this. From unexpected snowstorm just a couple days ago, everybody's anticipating massive crowds for another celestial event on Monday with the total eclipse pathway going through large parts of our state. So my point is, we're always ready. We have planning in place for all of our teams activate instantaneously, and I feel very comfortable about that. But again, these are emerging situations. It could be over, but also there could be another effect, and we have to be prepared for that and warn New Yorkers to be particularly vigilant in the days following an original earthquake.
Governor, getting an update there from Governor Hochul and her team. The takeaways: no reports of any damage, no disruption to Amtrak, no crashes on state roadways related to this. They did see a spike in cell service immediately after the quake at 10:23 this morning. Hochul says they're also going to be evaluating bridges and tunnels. Now, we've been hearing from a lot of folks, including our own reporters. Our Glenn Schuck, he's in Borough Park, Brooklyn.
And Kevin, just to kind of follow up on what the governor was talking about, we want to get some urgent messages out to those who have tuned in to 1010 Winds at 92.3 FM. Getting a lot of calls about parents who went to schools here in the 5 boroughs thinking they should take their kids out. And in fact, the DOE is telling parents to not report to schools right now. You can understand a parent's concern, and obviously, right, we have children as well, and many people do. Their reaction would be, boy, I better get to the school and check things out. Again, the DOE is saying to not do that and that everything is fine. They're aware of the situation. The school's operating as normal. Again, no need for parents to get to schools. Now, I also heard from the FDNY. They've gotten, as you can imagine, Kevin, thousands of 911 calls that they're urging people to not do that again unless you actually do have an emergency. We haven't heard of any reports of people trapped in elevators or things like that. But again, 311 is usually the number. They're trying to get people off of 911. The FDNY's evaluation saying that there are no major incidents, no structural issues that they've been told about. And Kevin wanted to follow up on something else, not to have to correct Governor Hochul, but she was talking about the airports in terms of ground stops at Kennedy and Newark. I'm checking in with both airports here, and it seems both are operating as normal as of right now, Kevin. Both at JFK, they're saying normal operations, the same at Newark Airport, though you can imagine if you were sitting in the terminal there and felt that, if you'd actually want to be getting on a plane or not. Now, if we have a couple seconds here, I just want to share this with you as well. We heard from the governor talking about where you should be in terms of if there were any aftershocks and getting out of whatever building you're in. I spoke with Mindy, who lives in a 7th floor apartment in Bay Ridge. This was her experience when this happened around 10:30 this morning.
And I'm standing there and I'm like, what is this? I'm like, this is an earthquake. I took my dog for a good 10 minutes. The kitchen shook up. I took my dog and ran down 7 flights of stairs. I'm still shaken up, and I think he is too.
In fact, she's sitting in her car in Bay Ridge trying to calm down. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of stories like this throughout the day here today, Kevin. By the way, I'm glad you're okay. I was in the newsroom in the last one in 2011. I knew that shook me up pretty bad, so hang in there.
Yeah, we've had a lot of construction work. This completely felt different, and that's one of the things that we've been hearing from so many people is that it did feel different to whether it's the rumbling from a subway train passing through or construction work or road work or whatever it be. It just felt different. Our Juliet Papa, she's been at Yankee Stadium ahead of opening day. She didn't feel it. She's lucky, I can tell you that, but she's been hearing from folks who did experience it there at the stadium.
Yeah, Kevin, in fact, I went out to talk to some of the fans here, people who were maybe en route or were here. I've been here since about 9:30 in the morning, and I've been up and down, so I didn't feel anything in particular. A reporter next to me said that the Toronto Blue Jays really felt it in their clubhouse. And there are reports that some of the Yankees, when they were taking batting practice and some of them were just doing warm-ups out in the outfield, felt it. But I went and spoke to some of the fans, and this is what Ryan told me. Feel anything? I was sitting inside.
I just felt like a little bit of tremble, but I thought maybe because it was like from the subway or the train, because it bounces around a little bit.
And what did you think when you realized there was an earthquake?
I was hoping they weren't postponing the game, but I was worried if there was any real problems.
It seems like everything's going.
Everything's going okay. We're okay.
Great. Yeah, so far everything is here and going according to schedule. They're starting to remove some of the batting cages here. So this game is expected to start on time. You haven't seen any notification of any delay. The fans are arriving. They're lining up for their food. But they all have a story to tell, whether they heard from somebody or whether they felt it. A woman told me she was down on the ground level and she was coming into the stadium and she felt it. She said she thought, too, that it was the train. Another woman on Metro North was on the train, and she said she felt some sort of bump or blip, and she believes it was, not the service, it was the earthquake. So a lot of stories here, a lot of experiences, but we are going to play ball in the Bronx. Kevin?
Yeah, this is what happens when the Mets win a baseball game. Thank you, Juliet. We're hearing from so many folks, including some experts on this. We're joined now by John C. Mutter. He's a professor of Earth and Environmental Sciences and International Public Affairs at Columbia University. I appreciate you joining us. What can you tell us about this earthquake and how this differs from some of the other experiences we've had?
So, an earthquake of this magnitude is fairly rare. But historically, and I'm talking hundreds of years here, there have been earthquakes of this magnitude before in New York State and the general area. Not much above magnitude 5, but still about the same size. The reason we felt it, or so many people felt it, is that the earthquake occurred relatively close to the surface. So it's only about 5 kilometers below the surface. Most earthquakes are like 10, 15, 30 kilometers below the surface. And although they happen, we don't feel them because they're too far down.
I know my friends out west are going to say this is no big deal, and we say the same thing when they get about half an inch of snow. But there are some differences when there's an earthquake out west and when there's one here in terms of how far it's felt.
Yes, and we have, the rocks in this area are very solid, so they're not spongy at all. So even a relatively small earthquake will propagate its energy quite a distance.
We've been hearing about concerns with aftershocks. What is the window here in terms of expectations for folks?
So the nature of aftershocks is that they almost always occur after a reasonable size earthquake. They are always smaller in magnitude, and they become further and further spaced out in time. So that, if we got an aftershock, an hour after the first shock, the next one will be 3 hours, the next one will be like...
And John, before we let you go, I wanted to ask one last question. Where were you and what did you experience when it happened?
I was on the 15th floor of the International Affairs Building, and for a while I didn't realize what was going on, and people are saying, well, it's construction because we've had construction around here. But it soon became pretty clear that it wasn't construction. It was felt over, too large an area for that.
Well, it's John C. Mutter joining us, professor of Earth and Environmental Sciences and International Public Affairs at Columbia University. Now, in a couple of minutes, we are expecting to hear from Mayor Adams. He will provide an update on what the situation here in the city is in terms of inspections, making sure that everything is safe when it comes to buildings and public transit. He did put out a statement saying our first responders are working to make sure New Yorkers are safe. And at this point, we don't have any reports of major impacts or injuries. He did say he encouraged New Yorkers to check in on their loved ones, saying if you feel an aftershock, drop to the floor, cover your head and neck, and take cover under a solid piece of furniture next to an interior wall or in a doorway. We've been hearing from so many listeners in terms of what they experienced when this first happened. Again, at 10:23, a 4.8 magnitude quake centered in White House Station, New Jersey. Here's what we've been hearing.
I was actually sitting here just eating some breakfast.
I was actually in my car.
Oh my God! I was in my kitchen.
All of a sudden, my breakfast bowl is shaking. The chandelier is shaking.
My entire car just started shaking. It was honestly almost rocking. And I'm like, I'm wondering, if it was going to happen again, maybe I should run out into the street.
One of the very rare instances where we all experience something at the same time. Millions of us throughout here at home. You're listening to WINS, WINS-FM, HD1 New York. We continue our coverage with my colleague, Lynda Lopez.
We are continuing our coverage now of the earthquake, the 4.8 magnitude earthquake that struck just west of New York City in White House Station, New Jersey. And impacts were felt here in the city, throughout the tri-state area, and in places all along the East Coast, as far away as Baltimore and Philadelphia and Connecticut. As we said, a 4.8 magnitude. There are no initial reports of damage in the city at this time, but Mayor Adams is saying that his team is assessing the impacts. We actually expect to hear from Mayor Adams this hour with a live press briefing and an update, so we will bring that to you live as soon as it happens. And of course, NJ Transit, just some of the transit updates for you. NJ Transit telling us that rail service system-wide is subject to delays. They're subject to about 20-minute delays right now on NJ Transit in both directions because they have to do some bridge inspections. We're also hearing from New York City Public Schools. They are tweeting that parents should not come to school to try to pick up their kids. And again, we'll keep you updated on all of the information that you need for this earthquake.
WINS-FM and HD1 New York. Always.
And let's go ahead and go to traffic and weather together. We head over now to Karen Stewart.
Well, we've got some mass transit issues to talk about related to the earthquake. Amtrak Northeast Corridor says speed restrictions are in place. Engineers are inspecting tracks that may have been impacted by the earthquake. New Jersey Transit Rail Service system-wide at least 20-minute delays in both directions due to bridge inspections. The Newark Light Rail is suspended system-wide because of track inspections. And the River Line Light Rail Service is suspended in both directions between the Waterfront Entertainment Center and Trenton due to track inspections going on there related to the earthquake as well. So we've got AC and E delays too. They had lost third rail power near Canal Street, but they've restored it, but they are running with residuals through that area. You know, we've got a Yankee game to talk about too. First pitch at 1:05. If you're heading out right now into Yankee Stadium, we've got delays off the inbound GW Bridge, which by the way is at least right now, let me just double check this, a 45-minute wait for the upper, 40 minutes for the lower, and 30 minutes to the outbound George from the westbound Cross Bronx. The Deegan delays start at the Mosholu almost, at least by Lehman College, and go down into the stadium. The 145th Street Bridge, the McCombs Dam Bridge, very heavy. We're also tied up along Jerome Avenue seriously in 161st Street, heading out into Yankee Stadium. Keep it locked to 1010 Wins. We will keep you updated. We're sponsored by Amazon Hub Delivery. Visit Amazon.com/Hub Delivery. Traffic and transit every 10 minutes around the clock. I'm Karen Stewart, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM.
And let's head now over to Brooklyn. That's where we find our Marla Diamond. Marla.
And Lynda, we're outside Atlantic Terminal. As far as we know, the subways are running on schedule, but we've been speaking to a lot of people up above who say that they sure felt this around 10:20. One woman said that her apartment was shaking, and right away she knew it was a tremor because she's from Trinidad and said that they experienced those quite a bit there. But we spoke to a firefighter as well, Raphael, who said that he was at Metrotech for his annual physical exam, and as the doctor is taking his blood pressure, his feet start shaking below him. He looks at his other firefighters. He's like, "What's going on?" He said they were almost doing like the cha-cha, their legs, the way he described it. And they had no idea until one of the supervisors quickly told them that it was an earthquake. So I did not feel it at all. I was in a car at the time. I was driving on the BQE and Ocean Parkway out to Borough Park and did not feel it one bit. And there are people that are telling me they did not feel much, including a construction worker that we just spoke to. He's working on one of those high-rises, and he said that he felt a little shake. He thought it was the subway, and then like his coworkers were saying they were getting calls from Long Island, from New Jersey, and that it was identified as a pretty strong earthquake for New York City. As you had been mentioning, the schools are sheltering in place. I got an email from my son's school in Lower Manhattan that they'll be sheltering in place. And so it does appear that, you know, everything is safe and that the people in the tall buildings are okay, but certainly a jolt this morning. Marla Diamond, 1010 Wins, live in downtown Brooklyn.
And also in Brooklyn, that's where we find our 1010 Wins reporter, Glenn Schuck, with the latest. Glenn. Oh, and it looks like we're having a little trouble connecting to Glenn's line. Glenn also reporting from Brooklyn on some of the effects of our earthquake. Let's go now to the Bronx. We'll go to our Juliet Papa, who is at Yankee Stadium on Yankees opening day.
Yeah, well, you know, this stadium has shaken in the past when there have been World Series and opening days and playoff games when there's so much activity and excitement. And I remember in the former stadium, I've been to some playoffs, and especially my brother was at Aaron Boone's home run when he said literally the mezzanine section shook under his feet. But this is a whole different kind of situation that we're talking about. And some people here actually did feel it if they were on the ground level or just coming into the stadium. Some of the players, specifically, I was told, the Blue Jays clubhouse, they said they really felt shaking going on. So I spoke to Allie and Grace, and they were on their way here.
Train.
You were on the train. Was there any noticeable feeling on the train?
It was kind of weird. We just felt like it was shaking, and we thought it was just the train, like, you know, braking or doing something. She didn't even notice anything.
I was oblivious.
Yeah.
Wow. And you felt a little unusual.
Yeah, it just felt like, oh, what are they doing? They're like breaking a lot or something. Like it felt like it was just vibrating. Yeah.
So they were on Metro North, actually, and they felt that sort of bump or that glitch, and they got a little nervous. They said, thankfully, it wasn't worse because you don't really want to be on the train if something happens and now you're not moving or you're stuck there for a while. But right now, they're cleaning up the field, and they're raking the infield and the clay, and they're getting ready for action here, and everything here so far is on time. Lynda?
That's our Juliet Papa reporting from Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. Let's head back to Brooklyn now, check in with the latest on what's going on there with our Glenn Schuck.
You know, I want to mention something on a little lighter note, too. Only in New York, Lynda, this is something pretty cool, I thought. The Empire State Building is on X, Twitter, saying that, quote, I am fine. So it's good to know that the Empire State Building is fine. You know, you think about skyscrapers right like that, and imagine being up there. I'm curious to see if anybody was at the top of the Empire State Building, if they could have felt it. But again, they put this on social media that they're fine. In fact, they're going to continue with normal operations. Another interesting note we may hear from the mayor, too, when he speaks here on 1010 Wins about what happened here, is that they're asking people in New York and, frankly, the tri-state area, if you want to check on somebody, which you should do, you should try to text them. It's easier to do that versus using the phone. The phone systems, as we've been hearing, are okay, but they don't want to continue to get them jammed up. Newark and JFK appear to be normal operations at this point. The FDNY telling me again, thousands of 911 calls have been coming in for all kinds of things. There is some concern, of course, about building facades, but I haven't heard of any significant damage of any kind at this point. Checking back in with Matt, who actually was on his way to see Juliet at the Yankee game. He was coming in from Queens, and he gave me a call as to what he experienced.
Yeah, so it felt like 15 to 20 seconds. You know, I was literally just putting on my Yankee jersey for the game, and then I just felt the whole house shake, and it felt like it was not going to stop. The 20 seconds felt like 2 minutes for me, you know? I felt like a big shaking, like my whole house was shaking, and I felt like a lot of things were moving and some things fell on my house.
So imagine he's probably about, I would say, 70 miles from the epicenter there in Hunterdon County in New Jersey, as we've been talking about near a White House station in Lebanon in New Jersey. So we're getting reaction from as far north as upstate New York, portions even of Vermont, Long Island, into Pennsylvania. People definitely felt this, as I know you guys did in the newsroom as well, Lynda.
Yeah, the phones started lighting up here in the newsroom with people giving us their accounts of what happens. And of course, as you mentioned, our personal cell phones of everyone here working in the newsroom lit up as well. How far away were the people you were hearing from? Who was farthest afield of people that you heard from that felt this quake?
Actually, I had my friend Heidi, who I used to work with in radio years ago up in Schenectady, said she felt it pretty strongly. My sister, Jill, I'll give her a shout out. She called me from by Bridgeport, Connecticut. She said it was actually a very strong rumbling there. I checked in with some other people that I know up in Providence, Rhode Island area. They did not feel it there. But as we've been talking about here, there's even sections of the city apparently you didn't feel it. I don't know how you couldn't, unless probably like what Marla was explaining. Maybe if you're in a car moving, you may not have felt the same experience. But again, my friend Cliff, who's in the border of New Jersey and Pennsylvania, they certainly felt it pretty strongly there as they go out to Pennsylvania. That's because, again, as the crow flies here, the Lebanon, I would think, is probably about 10 miles, I think, from the Pennsylvania state line. So they probably felt it in Bucks County and places like that as well. So
and we're going to have to interrupt you there, Glenn, because Mayor Adams is starting his press conference to give us the latest. And here we take you to that now live.
Buildings Commissioner Jimmy Otto.
Right now we're hearing from his spokesperson, Fabian Levy.
Department of Transportation Commissioner Yadanis Rodriguez. Department of Environmental Protection Commissioner Rit Agarwal. Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs Commissioner Manny Castro, Housing Preservation and Development Commissioner Adolfo Carrion, Mayor's Office of Community Affairs Commissioner Fred Kreisman, New York City Health and Hospital Senior Vice President and Chief Quality Officer Dr. Eric Way, NYCHA Executive VP of Operations Support Services Keith Grossman, MTA CEO Jano Lieber, Con Ed President Matt Ketchke. So first I'd like to introduce Mayor Adams.
Thanks so much, Dean Levy, and I'm sure there are many questions that need to be answered. All of us felt in some way or another the earthquake that hit our city around 10:23 a.m. We felt the impact of this 12.7 magnitude earthquake. The epicenter was in Lebanon, New Jersey, about 50 miles from New York City. And as you know, this is a developing situation. where you're always concerned about aftershocks after an earthquake. But New Yorkers should go about their normal day. First responders are working to make sure the city's safe. And one thing we do so well in our city is bring together all of the agencies that are involved and our partners and other entities. Everything from the MTA to the Department of Buildings, the parents who are concerned about their school children. Chancellor Banks would be here to report on that. But we say over and over again, the safest place for our students, we believe, will continue to be in school. At this point, we do not have any reports of major impacts to our infrastructure or injuries. But of course, we're still assessing the situation and we'll continue to update the public. We're in touch with the White House, the governor's office, and local elected officials. And I encourage New Yorkers to check on their loved ones to make sure that they are fine, not only from the infrastructure damage, but this could be a traumatic moment for individuals going through an earthquake. And if you feel an aftershock, drop to the floor, cover your head and neck, and take cover under a solid piece of furniture next to an interior wall or in a doorway. And so I want to thank the emergency staff and first responders for their work to keep New Yorkers safe. Earthquakes don't happen every day in New York. So this can be extremely traumatic. The number of texts, calls, and inquiries that people sent out to not only our administration, but to family members checking on them, we know how this can impact you. But we're ready for the unexpected. This is New York City, and we respond accordingly. We will continue to update New Yorkers as we get more information. And I would now turn it over to Commissioner Iscol.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to my colleagues for their quick and speedy response to this. I'm pleased to report that there are currently no major impacts or safety events related to this earthquake. We're asking all New Yorkers to call 311 to report damage or any issues that you're having. Also, if you have any need for disaster assistance due to damage or anything like that, please call 311. That is the best place to refer those needs. If you have a life safety issue, please use and call 911 immediately, but preserve 911 for those life safety events. The team acted immediately. We convened our emergency response teams and issued guidance to the public. The likelihood of aftershocks remain low, but we do remain vigilant, and we ask all New Yorkers to remain vigilant as well. We activated our protocols for this earthquake. We immediately started coordinating with all city, state, federal, and our utility partners. Public notifications were sent out both by Notify NYC and our wireless emergency alert system. You can hear some of the phone buzzings and delays from that have been issued. As soon as it happened, we convened here at New York City Emergency Management in order to be able to send out guidance. We activated, as soon as it happened, we convened here at NYCM to send out our guidance for what happens during an earthquake, including on the possibility of aftershocks. We contacted our City Hall and agency commissioners, as well as all of our partners at the federal and state level. That also includes all of our utility partners, our transportation partners at the MTA, Port Authority, and the airports. While there is a low likelihood that there will be aftershocks, we always want to be on the safe side. So if you are outside during an aftershock, please move to an open area away from buildings, trees, and power lines. If you are driving, pull over to a safe location. We're asking people to check in on their relatives, on their loved ones, neighbors, especially the children and their other individuals. I think that this is also an incredible time just to remind us all to make sure that we're prepared. So if you are a New Yorker, if you're visiting New York, we encourage you to sign up for Notify NYC. This is available in 14 languages, including American Sign Language, over 1 million subscribers. You can sign up by calling 311. You can call up by downloading the app or by going to nyc.gov/notify. We also encourage people to make sure that they have an emergency kit and to make sure that they know the guidance for earthquakes, which, as the mayor said, to drop, cover, and to get under furniture, sturdy furniture, or in a doorway to make sure that you are safe. Please also make sure that you're checking your utilities, that you know how to turn them on and off, especially if you are a property owner. With that said, who am I turning it over to?
Chancellor Banks.
Chancellor Banks. I'll turn it over to Chancellor Banks for an update on the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. So the earthquake was felt across the entire city and across many of our schools across all 5 boroughs. In fact, I was at LaGuardia High School at an event this morning when the earthquake hit. I did not personally feel it, but many people in the room felt it. So first and foremost, what's most important to understand is we want to emphasize that we've received no reports of any injury to staff or students. And that's the most important thing, and safety is our top priority in ensuring that everyone is safe in our schools. Immediately following the earthquake, our teams, both within New York City Public Schools and across the city, immediately jumped into action. We've been in close and constant communication with City Hall, the Office of Emergency Management, School Construction Authority, and other agencies as well. So at this moment, there is no indication that any of our buildings were compromised. And our facility staff at the School Construction Authority are quickly and thoroughly inspecting buildings to ensure safety. And out of an abundance of caution, we've assembled all of our building response teams as well. So we've instructed all of our school principals to continue operations and dismissal as normal. We ask the school staff and families to remain calm and to model that for all of our students, all of our children. Parents do not need to pick up their child early as a result of today's earthquake. Additionally, all after-school programs will continue as planned. If conditions change, our schools will communicate directly with families. We also will post updates on our social media pages, which can be found at NYC Schools. I want to thank all of our school staff and our facility staff for keeping our students safe during times like these. Their professionalism in the face of an emergency is a role model for all of our students. Again, the top lines, all of our students across the school system are safe. All of our staff are safe. We have no reports of any structural damage to any of our school facilities, while many schools in fact felt some tremors from the earthquake. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chancellor. Next, we'll hear from Buildings Commissioner Jimmy Otto.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Let me say right at the outset that we at the Department of Buildings have not seen an influx of calls regarding building damage, but we want all New Yorkers to know that our team is ready. We are putting on additional construction and engineering professionals from this point on over the weekend. So if reports do come in, we will be ready to respond. Our construction enforcement unit is out doing inspections similar to what we do prior to big storms. There are 1.1 million buildings in the city, which means we need cooperation from construction professionals. We've messaged that to them, but let me take this opportunity again to remind all of our construction professionals, you need to go out and check on your buildings, even if those sites are closed, and determine that the sites are secure. And if you see any conditions that are troublesome, please reach out to the department. This is a time for that tried and true saying, if you see something, say something. So to New Yorkers, we at the Department of Buildings are concerned about some of the downstream possibilities, cracks that you might see that may materialize and manifest in a week or a month, or scaffolding, retaining walls. If you see something that is problematic, please call 311. This weekend, we will have an increase in our emergency response team. We've mobilized our borough operations and our special ops folks so that if our sister agency, the fire department, or any of our partners in government or the public report an increase in locations, we are at the ready to respond.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we'll hear from Con Ed President Matt Ketschke.
So, thank you. So, for our energy delivery system, energy infrastructure, there were no impacts from this event. We continue to monitor them. Our critical energy infrastructure is continuously monitored. During the course of the event, we saw no change in status for our energy infrastructure. We do have a series of protocols for after an earthquake event. We have initiated those. Those involve inspecting our critical facilities and working through all our facilities for inspection. Those inspections are ongoing. We haven't identified any issues. In the case of an earthquake, one of the things that from the energy side we would be concerned about is the potential for gas leaks. So I encourage, if you smell gas, either call 911 or 1-800-75-CON-ED and report the gas leak. Do not assume that somebody else has reported. So if you smell gas, call us or call 911 immediately. Otherwise, we'll continue our inspections and all looks good. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Next, we'll hear from MTA CEO Jano Lieber.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor Adams and Commissioner Iscol. I want to reassure New Yorkers that the service on the transit system, all aspects of the transit system, maintained continuously operating safely throughout the incident and has continued right to now. I've been in touch with the president of all the MTA agencies, starting with Bridges and Tunnels. Kathy Sheridan, the president of MTA Bridges and Tunnels, is here, but also New York City Transit, Long Island Railroad, and Metro North. Initial inspections of all the facilities have been completed, and there are initial further inspections ongoing, emphasizing that the 7 bridges operated by MTA have been inspected, and I want to emphasize those were designed to withstand much stronger seismic impacts than we experienced today. Our frontline staff across the system have been instructed to report any abnormalities. There have been none so far flagged. And of course, we're going to continue to monitor the situation very, very closely. We have an open communications bridge with all of our MTA agencies to report, as I said, any abnormality that they encounter. So far, the input on that has been 0. We're going to let riders know if there are any impacts to service, but there are none. Just as the Chancellor said, the school system is operating fully, so is the MTA transit system without disruptions caused by the earthquake. I want to thank Mayor Adams, your entire team, and also Governor Hochul, with whom I've been in touch, for their leadership throughout this challenging moment for the city and the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, we'll hear from Manny Castro from the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs for a few words in Spanish.
Muy buenas tardes, soy Manuel Castro, el comisionado de Asuntos de los Inmigrantes de la Ciudad de Nueva York. Hoy estamos con el alcalde Eric Adams, los comisionados de varios departamentos.
And we've been hearing from Mayor Adams and other city officials on the update for the city on this 4.8 magnitude earthquake that was felt throughout the New York City area. Mayor Adams saying a short time ago that New Yorkers should go about their normal day. He said there are no reports of major impacts to infrastructure. The Commissioner of Emergency Management, Zach Iscol, said there were no major impacts or safety events related to this earthquake. And he said they are still monitoring, and if there is any need for any residents who have a need for disaster assistance, they should call 311 for any assistance. We also heard from Chancellor Banks, the school's chancellor, who said there are no reports of any injuries in school to staff or students and no reports of buildings compromised. But he said the school day will be going on as usual, and parents should not come to schools to pick up their children early. They are continuing with the school day and regular activities. And Mayor Adams is actually coming to the podium again for his press conference, so let's listen live.
I was at Gracie Mansion at the Youth Gun Summit, and I didn't feel it. My security detail brought it to my attention.
Commissioner Otter was talking about downstream effects, that maybe things that people don't notice right away. Do you have any calls from any of the buildings in the city? A broken mirror, a crack, something that you wouldn't describe as major damage, but as evidence of the earthquake?
Yeah, as of 30 minutes ago when I arrived here, we had seen no reports coming in, but we obviously will monitor and will respond accordingly.
Commissioner Kavanaugh say a little bit more.
Yeah, we're also monitoring 911 calls for the same thing, often to be referred to our agency partners if they are not major but still important. And we've seen a very, very minor increase. We've got about 30 additional calls than we would typically get on a Friday, and none of them were for major incidents. We will monitor for the rest of the day, of course. We will refer them as needed and make sure that anything, and I'd like to reiterate what Con Ed said, especially odors of gas, is referred accordingly to make sure that the infrastructure is safe.
Hello, how are you?
We're Stanley.
Could you walk us through what the process is of inspecting all the bridges as well as the tunnels in the subway system right now? What is the process?
Kathy, come on up. Sure. Want to talk about the bridges?
Sure. So good afternoon. I'm Kathy Sheridan, president of MPA Bridges and Tunnels. So we go out and do preliminary inspections. They were dispatched within about 5 minutes of the earthquake occurring. All the preliminary results came back negative, no impacts to our facilities. We have also mobilized all of our structural inspection teams, which do our biennial inspections on a regular basis. So they are now out on the ground. We expect to have results from them by 4 p.m. But again, we don't expect an earthquake of this magnitude to have any impact on our facilities.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you just with the tunnels and the subways, what's the process for inspecting all those?
So for the subway, I won't talk about the subways. I'll let the chair talk about that. For our two tunnels, the Hugh Carey Tunnel and the Queens Midtown Tunnel, tunnels are very resilient for seismic impacts, so they move with the ground. So again, it's a hands-on inspection. We go and do visual inspection to see if there are any damages.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same in the subway system. There's we have folks who routinely walk the track and inspect structure as well as track, and those protocols are in place.
Emergency Management Commissioner, that Notify NYC alert went out about 20 minutes, a little bit more after the earthquake. The deputy mayor was tweeting, the governor was tweeting at that point. So I guess why did that go out so much later than the actual earthquake?
The notify message? I think 20 minutes time to target is pretty fast for public notification. First off, there's a lot of work we have to do to make sure we're getting confirmation from USGS that this was actually an earthquake, right? There's a lot of things that can cause buildings to shake. Two, we also need to make sure we're putting out the proper guidance. But 20 minutes is very, very fast for a public notification.
USGS actually tweeted about 5 minutes after it happened, though. So again, where was that 15 minutes?
Well, in addition to that, they are confirming that there is a earthquake. Then there is also making sure that we're updating the guidance, right? In addition to that, with Notify, as you know, we put this out in 14 languages, including American Sign Language.
So then should the mayor and the governor not
Thank you.
So, Zach, maybe it would be helpful to say also if there's a difference between during an earthquake and after an earthquake.
Yeah, so there's also guidance that's different for both during an earthquake and after an earthquake, right? So during an earthquake, we want to make sure people are following the proper guidance, that they are staying inside a building, that they're getting under furniture while the earthquake is actually occurring. But then also we need to make sure we're putting out the right information so people know what to do afterwards, that they're taking the right precautions. You've heard some of that from our partners at Con Ed about gas leaks, about what to do if there are aftershocks, about whether or not you are informing people that they should be going about their normal course of business, or whether or not there is a high likelihood of aftershocks, right? So all of that needs to be confirmed to make sure we're getting the right information out to the public. That takes a little bit of time, but I think our team did a remarkable job today in getting it out to the public.
Commissioner, could you walk us through what the city's protocol is when you are suspecting an earthquake? What exactly happens?
Well, this is a no-notice event, right? So there's no suspecting an earthquake. A no-notice event, unlike a weather event.
What do you launch into once you say, hey, we think this is what
Yeah. So the first thing in any type of emergency, whether it's a notice or no-notice event, a no-notice one being, an explosion, an act of terrorism, a mass shooting, something that was not forecasted, unlike a weather event. But in these cases, the number one thing that you're looking at is, are there concerns that are life safety concerns, right? Are we getting an overwhelming number of 911 calls? Is the fire department, do we have collapsed buildings? Is there an emergency response that we need to immediately respond to? Number two is then checking in with all of our partners across the city to make sure that there are no cascading impacts that we also need to address. Are there things that, while there might not be life safety events, are there issues to our utilities? Are there issues to our transportation networks? About our schools? That was one of the number one concerns, about making sure that everything is okay with our kids who are in schools today. Then the next piece of that is also at the same time getting information out to the public, making sure that it is the right guidance given the circumstances, given the projections for what might come next. All of that is what the team is doing here and coordinating with all of the incredible partners that you see behind us. Thank you.
Anyone, Mayor, and I don't know if this would be for a team member or not, but anyone using their cell phone in the last hour knows it's been difficult. We've heard your administration give the warnings about when to and when to not call 911. Is the 911 system getting a little overwhelmed right now, or are you worried about the cell phone towers?
As far as the 911 system is concerned and the 311 system, we've seen an uptick starting at 10:30, and it's subsided to its normal call volume by 11 a.m. Right now it stands at its normal call volume.
Cell phone towers and any concerns about that?
One thing also I would just point out, we had an uptick in 311 calls. Obviously, we know there was an earthquake. Our teams are on the ground, so we don't need that anymore. Thank you very much to New Yorkers.
Thank you so much.
Good job, thanks.
Got a chance there to listen to Mayor Adams and his team as they provided an update on the situation here in the city. They are assessing buildings, they're assessing schools to make sure that there is no damage in the aftermath of that 4.8 earthquake that was centered at White House Station. We know that they are going to be working on a number of things, but right now, from what we gathered from that update, no word yet of any damage, no word yet of anyone hurt by this. So that is a positive. We've been hearing from so many folks, including our own reporters. Our Juliet Papa, she's at Yankee Stadium for what is opening day for the Yankees, an exciting moment, but also a moment where folks were a bit scared, Juliet, about what happened, the ones who felt it.
Oh, absolutely, Kevin. But, you know, baseball has always been this great stabilizer, you know, after 9/11, when games resumed, even after COVID. You know, it was a signal of things sort of getting back to normal and some sort of order and getting back to what we all know. And guess what? The Yankees were forging ahead with their warm-ups and with their pregame ceremonies about to get underway on time. So despite people hearing all of this here, they were forging ahead with this game. I'm told the Blue Jays in their clubhouse really felt the rumble. A couple of Yankee players indicated that they felt it out in the outfield during batting practice. And I spoke to fans here and even some of the people working here. This is Donald, who was making sausages.
And my wife told me she felt the house move. My daughter called me, she lives in Corona, Queens, and she told me too the house was moving. This is like about 15 minutes ago.
And you didn't feel it here, though?
But no, we didn't feel it here because the stadium's too heavy. You know, the houses are a lot lighter.
But the stadium moves like when the World Series.
Oh, yeah, for sure. During the weekend, all this game, this place be rumbling.
That is the line. This place is rumbling during the week, and we expect that here on opening day. So glad to hear that there seems to be at least no major damage or serious injury here. But of course, the day will play out. But it's play ball here at Yankee Stadium, Kevin.
Oh, that sizzle of the sausage he was making, I could hear it making me hungry. This was felt, by the way, 42 million people live in the area where it was felt. That's why it's such a big deal, because this is a moment where we all felt and experienced sort of the same thing at around the same time. The earthquake was reported at 10:23 this morning. There is word of at least one aftershock from this as well. Our 1010 Winds reporter, Glenn Schuck, he's checking in from Brooklyn. You felt it as well as you were driving around.
Yeah, I certainly did. I was in Borough Park here, and you could feel the more of what we've been talking about this morning, more of a shaking than a rumbling, Kevin, and very frightening. You know, the people you talked to were frightened, and as you have in the newsroom, my phone as well was lighting up with people that you know, right? We made contacts in the business for all these years, and our listeners are reaching out to us as well. And from Brooklyn, I was getting all this information from my friends in New Jersey, where I live. They were talking again about, Kevin, where apparently this earthquake, when it's officially confirmed, because it's preliminary information, that it was centered in the Ramapo fault line. We may have heard about that before. This is usually the fault line that has earthquakes in the, say, 1.0 to 3.0 range, where we probably could sleep right through it. This is much higher at that 4.7 or 4.8. The 185 miles long is this fault line, I was just being told, from Rockland County. It stretches down through New Jersey. It actually passes right by Hunterdon County, where apparently this was centered, and then goes into Pennsylvania. So again, this is why so many people felt it. If you figure this is a 200-mile long fault line, and then you'll extend out from there. So New Jersey Transit, I should mention too, also reached out to me. They're checking bridges at this point just to make sure there's some delays there. Amtrak doing the same. So there'll be a lot of inspection type things happening as we go into the weekend, and we'll be continuing to talk to folks here where I am still in Brooklyn as well. As I mentioned to Lynda Lopez earlier, when you watch children just kind of going about their business, laughing and playing on the playground, you know that, Kevin, that things are okay. Everybody's going to be fine.
That's one of the things the mayor's office talked about, too, making sure as adults that we provide a good example and not lose our composure in front of children, especially. We've been hearing from a number of 1010 Wins listeners throughout the area, folks who've experienced this all the way north from Connecticut to parts of Long Island. We heard from Sid earlier. He's in Monroe Township, about 30 miles, give or take, away from the epicenter.
I thought something hit my house, the way the house was shaking. But then, I realized that this has got to be an earthquake. The floor, I felt it in the floor, like a very low vibration.
Yeah, for so many of us, we were in the middle of doing whatever we were doing, mundane stuff, sitting around, eating, working. That's what makes it a bit scary when it comes out of nowhere.
What kind of got my attention was that it was vibrating, like a vibrating giant truck. And that's when I said, this is not normal.
Frank felt it out in Queens. We heard from Carmen. She couldn't quite figure out what was going on either.
Oh, my God. I was in my kitchen, and I really didn't know. I thought I was having, maybe it was my brain or something, or I was having a medical emergency, but it lasted so long. Oh, my God. I didn't know what to do. I'm still shook up. My heart is going a mile a minute.
Now, one thing we're keeping an eye on, as you've been hearing a lot about, is the potential for aftershocks. We've been hearing from some experts on that. We talked to Columbia University professor Dr. Klaus-Hans Jacob about aftershocks.
Aftershocks are typically much smaller in magnitude, so they may be rumbling, and some people may even feel them. But generally speaking, they are smaller, and so that is probably not a safety concern.
2.0 aftershock was felt near Bedminster, New Jersey. Mayor Adams telling folks as well as the governor that if you do feel an aftershock, to take cover, find a doorway or find some sturdy furniture to get underneath. Dr. Jacob did say quakes over 5 in our area. They're extremely rare.
A magnitude 5 in the greater, let's call it New York City metropolitan area, is on the average every 100 years or so. There was a magnitude a little bit larger than 5 in 1884.
Yeah, at the moment there is a lot of work being done to assess any potential damage. We know that initially after this happened, there was a ground stop at the area airport so the runways could be checked out. Those have been lifted. We know NJ Transit had to make sure that the bridges were fine before they can really feel comfortable sending rail service along some of those connectors. We've also been hearing from folks, leadership from Governor Hochul. We heard it from Mayor Adams to check in on your loved ones as well. First thing that I got was a text message from my own wife. My wife said, hey, did you feel that? She's joining me right now. This is the first time I'm getting a chance to talk to my wife. What did you feel? Because I didn't get to hear from you yet. We've been on the air doing this.
Hi, Kevin.
What did you experience? My wife is over in Jersey City when this happened. We may be having a connection issue there, and that's one of the things that has been going on, actually, which we've been hearing about. So many folks have been calling that the cell services have not been super great. I'm seeing the line here connected, but we'll work to get in touch with her. I would like to hear from my wife. I haven't heard from her just yet about what's been going on. We also have a dog at home. I'm wondering how he's doing at the moment. Another thing that we can tell you while we wait is that folks have been told, parents, I'm a parent, don't go to school if you don't need to go pick up your kids early, especially here in the city. Schools Chancellor David Banks says there are no students or staff that were hurt. The buildings are being inspected at the moment as well.
We ask the school staff and families to remain calm and to model that for all of our students, all of our children. Parents do not need to pick up their child early as a result of today's earthquake. Additionally, all after-school programs will continue as planned.
No major damage has been found. He was at LaGuardia High School at an event. He says he didn't feel the shaking, but staff that were with him certainly felt it. Again, I'm going to try to connect with my wife. I'd like to hear from her. Christina, are you there? Yeah, it's not working. That connection service is a real issue that we've been hearing about. I get her texts, so I know she's well. It's taking over. That's about all the communication I've been able to have with her. We do know that there's still traffic as usual. It is 12:41. Let's check in with Greg Rice as we get a check of traffic and transit out there. Greg?
Yeah, we had the Holland Tunnel closed temporarily a while back for inspections. That's all been reopened right now at the Holland. I'm looking at the jam cams getting you out of lower Manhattan. There is really no issue aside from a few minutes of company at the outbound Holland. Inbound, just go to the Newark Bay. Staten Island, getting to the bridge. Don't worry, this is not earthquake related. We just had a big crash on the eastbound expressway at Highland Boulevard. It still has a couple of lanes out, slowing you down from the MLK Expressway. And the Staten Island bound Goethals is a mess, but that's because of construction. It's got nothing to do with the earthquake, and it's going to take a little more than the ground shaking to keep people away from opening day at the stadium. All roads towards Yankee Stadium abysmal before first pitch. Southbound Deegan's crowded from the west 230s on down. The northbound west side trying to get to the Cross Bronx and Deegan. That's slow on the upper west side from the 140s. And the inbound George, if you're stuck in this, you're not making first pitch. 45 to 60 on the upper level, 30 to 45 on the inbound lower, and it's not going to do a whole lot better for you off of Route 46. Lincoln Tunnel was never an issue, and nor is it now. It's in pretty good shape. Bronx-bound Whitestone and Throgs next slow. The RFK, that's the best of it right now across the Upper East River. Again, earlier inspections, but the Holland's been completely reopened, and subways, you just have delays on the 4 and 5 trains. Other than that, the subways are in pretty decent shape. I'm Greg Rice, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM.
As for the weather, it is chilly out there. We'll see a high around 50, but the real feels are going to be stuck in the 30s with the breeze. Should be about 47 degrees for first pitch over at Yankee Stadium. Tonight, breezy, still cold, cloudy, a low near 40. Real feels closer to 30 degrees. As we continue our coverage of the earthquake, we know a 4.8 magnitude quake, epicenter White House Station, New Jersey, not far from Bridgewater, with a 2.0 aftershock felt out of Bedminster, New Jersey. We've been hearing from folks all over, not just in New Jersey, New York. Our Mac Rosenberg, 1010 Wins reporter, is out in Stamford, Connecticut. You felt it out there as well.
Oh, yeah, Kevin. And it was a solid 20 to 30 seconds or so here in my apartment of just pure vibration. And things were falling off the coffee table. You just have no idea what's going on. And it's interesting to me. You can get a sense of how people were reacting to this when you hear about what they initially were thinking that this might be. Obviously, many of us don't really think about earthquakes when the ground and the building starts shaking in the Northeast. Some people I spoke to thought they were hearing from the upstairs neighbors that are always too loud, or even a washing machine. And it didn't last too long to really get too scared about. I was really curious, and many others were as well. Heather, here in Stamford, took her cue from the dog. So she didn't really react much, but there were some, like Brian Cantori, that did. We have priorities. We got a good window into what everyone's priorities are going to be the next time we get an earthquake here. Mac Rosenberg, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM, live in Stamford.
One of the things that so many folks are getting is updates. We know President Biden himself got briefed on this issue as well. Lynda Kenyon has more on that.
A statement says, the president has been briefed on the earthquake, which had an epicenter in New Jersey, and he is in touch with his team, who are monitoring potential impacts. The statement goes on to say, the White House is in touch with federal, state, and local officials as we learn more. The quake struck as the president was preparing to head to Baltimore to see the site of the March 26th bridge collapse that has shut down the port. But he expects to remain in close contact with officials amid the possibility of aftershocks and structural damage from today's quake.
Again, Lynda Kenyon. Now, it was felt the quake was down in Baltimore, as far south as Richmond, Virginia, is what we've been hearing. Susan Castro, 1010 Wins listener. She's in Bloomfield, New Jersey. Susan, what did you experience? Susan?
Oh, we experienced. My daughter was sitting in the living room. I was in a different room. All of a sudden, she says, "Mom, the chair's shaking." And I'm like, "Oh my God, the chair's shaking!" I was like, "What's going on?" So I happened to be walking through the house, didn't think anything of it, and then all of a sudden I stopped. I walked into my bathroom, and I just started seeing certain things moving in my bathroom. When I'm walking through my house, and I still feel like we were shaking the floor. All of a sudden, my son was sound asleep upstairs in his bedroom, and he comes running down the stairs saying, Mom, my bed's shaking, What's going on? What's going on? I'm like, it's an earthquake. He's like, oh my God. He's like, Mom, I thought you were just trying to wake me up. He's like, I didn't know what was happening here. So it was like, we never felt like things like this before. Normally we would just like think it was like a truck going by, just like shaking a house or something, but it was for real. So my son was like, oh my God, he's like, what's going to happen? I was like, nothing's going to happen. So it was like just weird. We never felt this in our life before.
What was going through your mind in terms of what it could potentially be? You said you never felt anything like this before. Did you think immediately, hey, this is an earthquake?
Yes, I did. After, it was just like shaking. And I'm like, okay, it is really an earthquake.
That's Susan Castro joining us from Bloomfield, New Jersey. Now, the last time our area felt a quake like this, August 23rd, 2011. You might recall that was a 5.8 quake out of Virginia. It had a lot of impact in D.C. It was felt from Georgia all the way on up to Canada. Very different than when there's an earthquake out west. We feel it here through a much larger area. They are rare in terms of earthquakes on this side of the country, on the East Coast. We heard earlier from Professor of Earth and Environmental Sciences at Columbia, John C. Mutter.
An earthquake of this magnitude is fairly rare, but historically, and I'm talking hundreds of years here, there have been earthquakes of this magnitude before in New York State and the general area.
Again, things are different when it comes to quakes on this side versus the West Coast. Mutter explained a bit of why that's the case.
The reason we felt it, or so many people felt it, is that the earthquake occurred relatively close to the surface. So it's only about 5 kilometers below the surface.
Again, one of the positives, no reports of any serious damage or injuries. Crews have been inspecting buildings, roads, rails, tunnels in Jersey, in New York, out in Connecticut as well. Officials are asking folks to check in on loved ones, including kids and the elderly. Students, class for so many in session when this happened at Rutgers University, they were certainly startled by what happened.
It's safe to say that earthquakes are not common in New Jersey, so these Rutgers University students could be forgiven for not knowing what was going on.
I was sleeping in my bed, and the next thing I know, I just woke up and I feel my bed shaking.
We didn't even process that it was an actual earthquake. We just thought it was wind or something.
The tremor was centered about 20 miles west of New Brunswick, where they are, a magnitude 4.8 in White House Station, New Jersey, although it could be felt all over the New York City area when the rumbling began. Sherry Preston, ABC News, Essex County, New Jersey.
We've been hearing from folks. We heard from Hochul's office earlier telling folks that they are assessing damage. One of the things we heard from that update from the state that there was no reports of any building damage, structural damage, and we also know that there weren't any cases of accidents on the roadways because of the earthquake. We've been hearing from folks who were driving and saying they certainly felt it. We are expecting first pitch, though, at Yankee Stadium in a matter of minutes. That's going to go on as usual. They did feel it, not just the fans, even the players. Our Julia Papa is at the stadium for us.
Yeah, Kevin, and they are getting ready for the opening day ceremonies. They weren't going to miss a trick or bat an eye, even with the rumbling going on here in the Bronx and everywhere else in this New York metropolitan area. They are now announcing the Yankee players. Wait till they get to the lineup per se. Juan Soto ran out to do a couple of sprints out in right field. What applause and cheers that he got. So we can't wait for him to get up at bat. So and in fact, Don Mattingly got huge applause because he's with the Jays now, and he is still such a fan favorite here in the Bronx. They're getting ready to unfurl the huge American flag that is a tradition here at Yankee Stadium in the outfield. And then Paul O'Neill, the Warrior, former right fielder, is going to throw out the ceremonial first pitch. So a great time here. People are adjusting, heard all about the earthquake, but they're not too worried about it because they can't wait for baseball to get underway. Kevin.
It's very New York. Something like that happens and we just go, business as usual. Business as usual on the roadways a bit. It's 12:51. Get a check of that with Greg Rice.
I'll give you the transit side of all of this. New Jersey Transit, just 20-minute delays system-wide. They are doing some bridge inspections. They're trying to keep you safe rather than sorry. LIRR, Metro North, no major issues. There is one train delayed on the Babylon branch in the 11 o'clock hour. That was it. And in terms of the subways, they had a loss of third rail power over Canal Street. That was affecting the AC and E trains. That's done. You got the 2 and 3 trains right now delayed southbound, but that's every day. Here's what you need to know about the bridges and tunnels. Know that if you're on the inbound George, the good news is they're going to play baseball at Yankee Stadium. Bad news is you're going to miss first pitch. Inbound George is at least 45 on the upper level, 30 on the inbound lower, and the 46 and Palisades approaches are bad too. Southbound Deegan still crowded from the west 230s all the way to the stadium, and the northbound Deegan crawls from the RFK right up to the Yankee Stadium exits. Bronxbound Whitestone with some extra company. Bronxbound Throgs Neck is thinned out. It's the better bet. Westbound BQE before the Manhattan Bridge. That crash has the right lane out and slows you down from Queens. I'm Greg Rice, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM.
1010 Wins AccuWeather forecast meteorologist Joe Lundberg. It is at least clear, but man, it's cold.
It is cold. Gusty winds make the real field temperature right now right about 40 degrees. We're looking at a high this afternoon of about 50 with clouds, just a few sunny breaks and a passing shower. But most of the time will be rain-free through the game and even through the evening hours. Then later tonight, mostly cloudy, a cold breeze down to 40. Breezy and chilly tomorrow, clouds, sunny breaks. Pretty chilly start to the weekend with maybe a shower. Best chance in the afternoon, but most places get nothing, the high 52. We get to Sunday a little better with clouds and some sun, a brisk wind and a high of 54, but no rain. And Monday's the best bet. Mostly sunny skies. Should be great for the eclipse in the afternoon, the high up to 63. Mostly cloudy right now in Central Park at 45, humidity 47%, wind out of the west-northwest at 18. Repeating the current temperature 45, we're going up to 50 at Midtown. I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg in New York's weather station, 1010 Winds on 92.3 FM.
And it's news time, 12:53. We continue our coverage of the earthquake, a 4.8 magnitude quake. The epicenter, White House Station, New Jersey, Central Jersey, not far from Bridgewater, with a 2.0 aftershock that was reported out of Bedminster, New Jersey. We've been hearing from so many folks. This is one of those events that has a lot of people talking. Our Marla Diamond, she checked in with folks down in downtown Brooklyn at Atlantic Terminal.
Pretty intense is the way Raheem, a firefighter, described it.
I was at the FDNY headquarters down here and doing my yearly exam, and we was talking to the doctor, and we were standing, and I was like, what's going on here? I'm like, are you dancing? No, I'm dancing, It was scary.
Michelle was in her apartment in East Flatbush.
We was in the house, the kitchen / bedroom, and it was like a tremor. So we were standing there chit-chatting, and it's just a tremor.
One construction worker I spoke to said he felt a jolt that he thought was the subway until his phone started lighting up with messages. Marla Diamond, 1010 Winds on 92.3 FM in downtown Brooklyn.
Well, we'll go from downtown Brooklyn to another part of Brooklyn and check in with 1010 Winds reporter Glenn Schuck. Some activity where you are.
Yeah, there's all kinds of activity, actually, and I'm kind of watching things here. I've been talking repeatedly about how most of the people here where I was in the Borough Park section said they didn't feel anything, even though I did in my car. But I'm getting reaction from all over the place. We've been talking about this since it's happened at 10:25. So here I am in Brooklyn, and with the contacts that people reaching out to 1010 Winds, we appreciate everybody who's been reaching out to us. I was just told, Kevin, has nothing to do with Brooklyn, but I thought I should pass this along, that at least 3 homes on 3rd Street in Newark have been evacuated, and there's actually police tape up there. A friend of mine who attended Seton Hall and works in the area there, he told me that they're concerned with some damage to the homes there, and they do believe it is linked to this somehow. So there's at least 3 homes, 2 occupied, 1 that are not occupied, on 3rd Street near 7th Avenue in Newark that have been evacuated right now. They're keeping the block. Again, nothing urgent but of them coming down or anything, but it looks like there's possibly some cracks in that. So you'll probably be seeing a lot of inspections like this, especially as you get closer to that epicenter, which we would believe is on the Ramapo fault line. in the Hunterdon County in New Jersey, which is probably about 50 miles from New Jersey. So it's some pretty interesting information that I'm sure, Kevin, we're going to continue to get in terms of people checking out their properties here in the hours and days ahead.
That's our Glenn Schuck checking in with us. Now, one of the things we've been hearing is just that there will be assessment work going on to make sure that there is no structural damage to so many important buildings. We know assessments are underway here in the city.
We're in touch with the White House, the governor's office, and local elected officials. And I encourage New Yorkers to check on their loved ones to make sure that they are fine, not only from the infrastructure damage, but this could be a traumatic moment for individuals.
And those assessments go beyond just property. They go to people. Want to check in on folks and make sure it's okay. He also talked about the mental health aspect. So many people, even though maybe things didn't really happen in terms of damage, it did shake people up. It caused that adrenaline to spike. We've been hearing from so many listeners, and here's what some of them had to say immediately following the earthquake.
I was actually sitting here just eating some breakfast.
I was actually in my car. Oh my God! I was in my kitchen.
All of a sudden, my breakfast bowl is shaking. The chandelier is shaking.
My entire car just started shaking. It was honestly almost rocking.
And I'm like, I'm wondering, if it was going to happen again, maybe I should run out into the street.
Yeah, and one of the, now that things are starting to, the assessment process is underway, we've been hearing from some city officials as well who are critical of the alert system. You might recall all of our phones got an alert about the earthquake a lot longer after it happened. About 40 minutes after it hit, we had already been talking about it here on air. Upper Manhattan Councilman Sean Abreu writes on X that he didn't know if he was startled more by the earthquake or the 39-minute late emergency alert. Brooklyn Councilman Justin Brandon sarcastically posted about getting the alert. Yes, boo, we know. OEM Commissioner Zach Iskell says an alert came out 20 minutes after the quake hit and said it was pretty fast for a public notification. He added that they were waiting for confirmation that it was indeed an earthquake. Other listeners we heard from, Carmen, she's out in Flushing, Queens.
Oh my God! I was in my kitchen and I really didn't know. I thought I was having maybe it was my brain or something, or I was having a medical emergency, but it lasted so long. Oh my God. I didn't know what to do. I'm still shook up. My heart is going a mile a minute.
Again, 4.8 magnitude quake coming out of White House Station, New Jersey. 10:23 when that was felt. A 2.0 aftershock was felt out of Bedminster, New Jersey. Governor Hochul offered an update about the situation, saying structural teams are out assessing damage.
Right now, it's most important that we have our structural teams out there, our engineering teams, surveying our bridges, our roads, any area there could be a fault line that is not easily detectable to make sure that passengers on our rails as well as our commuters are safe.
There were some issues at airports. The FAA put a ground stop after the earthquake so that the runways could be assessed and make sure there was no damage. From what we understand, those are all now gone. There could be some residual delays because of it. And we know that the rail systems had some delays, including NJ Transit, not Amtrak. Amtrak kept going, but NJ Transit wanted to go out and inspect some of the, bridges and some of the rails to make sure there was no damage. This is WINS FM and HD1 New York. We continue our coverage of the earthquake with my colleague Lynda Lopez.
And thanks, Kevin. This is Lynda Lopez, and that was a 4-point magnitude earthquake that we experienced this morning as we continue our live coverage. It was centered west of the city in New Jersey and shook the whole New York City area. Mayor Adams held a press conference last hour. He briefed New Yorkers saying there were no major impacts to infrastructure, but that they'll continue to monitor. Folks as far away as Baltimore, Philadelphia, Connecticut, and other areas on the East Coast reported feeling the ground shake. The USGS, the United States Geological Survey, saying this quake may have been felt by more than 42 million people. NJ Transit says rail service is system-wide is subject to 20-minute delays in both directions because they have to do some bridge inspections. We also heard an update from New York City School Chancellor Banks, who said there were no injuries throughout the school system to students or staff. And he said the school day will be going on as normal. He urged parents, in fact, not to come to school early to try to pick up their kids and said after school, activities will also be happening as normal.
With Money News at 25 and 55 on WCBS on Bloomberg's Tracy Jonke.
All right, Tracy, thank you. CBiz Marks Paneth, the New York area's premier accounting, tax, and advisory firm. Just want to let you know, a couple of minutes ago, we were here in the newsroom. I was here in the studio, and we noticed a shaking. Honestly, I'm surrounded by teleprompters and screens, and one of them was shaking quite a bit. Now, our newsroom, as you can imagine, everybody's on the phone right now trying to figure out what this is. We have our people calling into the newsroom, including one calling from Oyster Bay saying that he felt his house shake. So we'll let you know. We'll let you know what's going on. Stay with us. WCBS News Time, 1028, traffic and weather together, and Tom Kaminsky.
Well, all right, Brigitte, let's start first off with the inbound side of the GWB. We've had delays there with about a 20-minute delay now at the inbound GWB. Of course, everyone's going to be heading on over to Yankee Stadium before long, but we've got delays on the eastbound side of the Cross Bronx getting out toward Webster Avenue. Had a crash there. That now does look to be cleared out of the way, and it is still very slow there. We're starting to see some delays both ways on the Major Deegan in through the area of the stadium. The west side, southbound, we still had some emergency repair work. Couple of lanes blocked at that spot around 58th Street. The two left lanes are blocked there. In Nassau, delays on the LIE and the Northern State getting in through Glen Cove Road and Willis Avenue. I'm Tom Kaminsky in the WCBS Traffic Center.
Well, it's a nice morning, but chilly. We have that blustery wind, and it's going to be under a little bit more cloud cover as we head throughout the afternoon. Still some blue pockets right now, and that's a nice sight to see for everything that we've had to deal with the last couple of days. The high will be right around 50, wind chills staying in the 30s, and then tonight it'll be cloudy, dipping down to 40, feeling closer to 30 degrees itself. And then tomorrow, that wind is still around, clouds, a few sunny breaks, and we can't rule out a spotty shower once again in the afternoon. We're kind of in this pattern. 52 degrees for the high on Saturday, and then Sunday is going to be a little bit more sunny, 54. Right now it's 45 Howard Beach, 46 West Hampton, and 41 White Plains.
Your radio home for Mets baseball.
Put it in the books!
This is WCBS 880 News.
We are being inundated right now in our newsroom with calls about a possible earthquake, a mysterious shaking this morning. We'll have a live update for you straight ahead. We have a number of developments from the Middle East this morning. 2 Israeli military officers fired. There is expected to be more aid now getting into Gaza, and we will speak live with a colleague of one of the aid workers killed. President Biden is heading to Baltimore today, and some March jobs numbers are out, better than expected. We'll bring you Wall Street reaction coming up. But first, at 10:31... we have breaking news that we certainly all felt here in the newsroom. We felt a shaking just a short time ago, about 10 minutes ago, and ever since then, we have been getting a lot of phone calls into the newsroom from our colleagues saying that they felt shaking. Our Steve Scott, who's in the newsroom, just checked with the USGS, a geological survey, and they say that there was a 4.8 quake in Lebanon, New Jersey. That's not too far from Wayne. It's in Hunterdon County. We also got a call from our production guy, Bill Tynan. He's in Oyster Bay, Long Island. He said that he felt his house shake. Here in the studio, I mentioned a couple of minutes ago that some of our teleprompters here in the studio, they were rattling away. And that's when we all knew that something was going on out of the ordinary. But it seems that there has been an earthquake in our area. And Tom Kaminsky, what can you tell us?
Well, it's pretty much the same thing as everybody's been saying. It lasted, we're here in Union County, and it lasted, I want to say, about 10 seconds. I actually was recording something for one of our sister stations, and as that occurred, so... I have to go back and listen to that tape just to see what this sounds like, or if you hear anything. But it lasted for probably about 10 seconds. But yes, it was just this classic, the way an earthquake is described, that sort of a rumble. But it just kept on building for a little bit. For maybe the first 5 seconds, sort of stayed stagnant that way, and then, as I said, it lasted maybe about 10 seconds, and then just sort of died off. And again, if the word that Steve Scott is getting there in the newsroom from the USGS is that it was located in Lebanon, New Jersey. That's about 25 miles to the west of where we are. Again, it seems as though this entire region felt it. We're having one of our colleagues check in saying that they felt it out around the area of Hofstra University, and that is in Nassau County. So we'll be keeping an eye on this. We haven't gotten any other reports of any traffic issues as a result, but again, we're keeping an eye on that. And of course, we've got the home opener Yankee Stadium in just a little while, so we'll see if anything is affected there somehow. But Brigitte, at this point, that's all I've got.
That was a lot, Tom. And Tom mentioned Nassau County, and I mentioned a little while ago one of our other colleagues in Oyster Bay felt his house shake. So when you think about it, a 4.8, I mean, compared with really, really serious, devastating earthquakes in the 7 range. We were just talking about Taiwan not too long ago. But a 4.8, not a mild earthquake. Lebanon, New Jersey, if that's where it was centered, we are getting reports from everywhere from Connecticut down to Philly. And we also have a little bit more officially for you on the earthquake. And this is a number of agencies, yes, in northern New Jersey counties are reporting an earthquake with buildings even shaking. All right, keep it here. We have a busy newsroom this morning. We're getting a lot more calls, and also our Sean Adams also noticed this, and he's already been on the phone with a seismologist, so we have you covered. We'll let you know. And just an AP alert is crossing right now, and yes, the Associated Press now making it really official. Earthquake shakes New York City area. That's the headline, with preliminary magnitude of 4.8. All right, we'll be back on that story in just a moment. WCBS News Time, 10:38. We want to go back to our, not just traffic and weather together, our earthquake coverage. We learned just moments ago, it became official from the Associated Press that an earthquake shook the New York City area this morning. It happened about 10:20 or so with a preliminary magnitude of 4.8. A little bit more information from the AP coming into the newsroom now. The FDNY saying that there were no initial reports of damage. But Tom Kaminsky, you and I were talking about this. This is really something. A 4.8 centered apparently in Lebanon, New Jersey. But we're getting so many phone calls from so many people everywhere from Connecticut down to Philly, Tom.
This is, and I have not experienced anything like this. And again, you talk to so many people that have experienced an earthquake, and this is really kind of low level when it comes to something like that. The only other incident that comes to mind a number of years ago was the one that was near Washington, D.C., that actually shut the Washington Monument had been closed for a number of years as a result of that. I was near the Cape May area at that point, and I don't really recall feeling anything like this, but this was a definite rumble for about 10 seconds, just sort of that rolling, the way it's always described, sort of like a rolling sound, a rolling rumble. Now, we're keeping an eye on all of the roads, especially if you're heading over toward Yankee Stadium. At this point, we have delays at about 30 minutes at the inbound GWB. If you're on Route 4, that looks good. The inbound side of the Route 46 approach, that's about a 15-minute wait. Inbound Lincoln and Holland, they look to be in good shape. Now, again, we'll get a look in Nassau County, too. The earthquake was felt, we're getting reports from one of our colleagues out around the Hofstra area, Hofstra University, so out in that stretch going out into Nassau County. The northern state looks good. The LIE, we do have some volume building up now as we get in through Glen Cove Road, in through Willis Avenue. That's midday road work at that spot, and the LIE in Queens delays getting in through the area of Queens Boulevard. I'm Tom Kaminsky in the WCBS Traffic Center.
All right, we are not going to go to John Stone with the forecast right now. Instead, we are going to go to Craig Allen, who, Craig, where exactly were you when you felt the earth move, as it were? Craig, can you hear us? All right. Let's see. All right. You know what? We're going to check back with Craig. In the meantime, I will bring you the forecast. And it goes like this. For the rest of today, it will be showery, but nothing like the rain we've had during the course of the week. Wind chill staying only in the 30s. Let's get more from John Stone.
Sunny breaks early, and then it's going to be cloudy for the rest. Also blustery and feeling chilly as a result of this wind. Some showers are also going to be around in the afternoon and evening, too, to deal with. High will be around 50, wind chills mainly in the 30s. Overnight, we're going to be breezy and dry with clouds, a low of 40, and then we still have some clouds around, a few sunny breaks, and a spotty shower in the afternoon tomorrow, high temperature 52. Sunday, brisk with some clouds to start, then more sunshine in the afternoon, high 54.
Okay, and again, right now, 43 degrees. That's the weather. Let's talk to another weather guy you know, our chief meteorologist, Craig Allen. Craig, where were you when you felt this morning's earthquake?
Right in the kitchen, and ready to go on downstairs, and I was going to close up shop for a couple hours until this afternoon. And everything just started to shake. At first, I know it wasn't thunder because the storms are all gone. And so I'm thinking to myself, what truck is that heavy to make everything rattle, excuse me, as much as it did in here? And I'm telling you, this was not just, rattling. There was a little bit of swaying, and everything that you had laying around was really back and forth and back and forth. So it was strong. There's no doubt about it. I'm reading here, as I'm talking to you, a 4.8. That is strong for our area. We have many fault lines in New Jersey that are, for the most part, inactive. But so far, from what I could see, I don't see anything about the depth, or I do, but I don't have a chance to read it real fast here. But I am seeing that 4.8 seems to be, let's see, moderate to heavy. It's coming in. We're coming in the light category, but for our region, that is pretty substantial at this point. And I see now that they've placed the star, the epicenter is just over the Hunterdon, Somerset border, southern sections of Warren County. Yes, somewhere in the vicinity of Mount Olive. So, I mean, and to feel that all the way out to the east end of the island and all the way into Pennsylvania, all the way on up beyond Nyack. I've gotten texts from friends and co-workers and colleagues all the way on down to Brick. Let's see, Philadelphia. I'm seeing reports now from Philadelphia. Bridgeport, New Haven. I mean, this is pretty big, substantial for our area.
West Haven, Connecticut,
yes.
Too. So, I mean, it really gives you that. When I first heard those numbers, even if it's a 4.7, I guess the USGS says a 4.7, that's still pretty darn big. So far, we've heard from the FDNY, Craig, no initial reports of any kind of damage. So that's a good thing. But these things they're a big deal in our area because they are fairly rare, right?
Very rare. Yeah, quite rare. I mean, there probably are a lot more little ones in the ones and twos category that we never actually really feel. That does happen. I mean, the earth is always moving underneath us. Even though I look above us, the earth is always moving underneath us too. But these ones and twos, these little things, we never really feel that. But once you start getting above a 2.5 and on up to a 3, and I do remember some back in the 80s. I remember one back in the early 2000s. That's when you start to feel it. And this probably is one of the stronger ones that we have had in, I'm going to venture a guess now, trying to remember when the last one was. I'm going to say in about 2 decades, this was one of the stronger ones.
And Craig, just again, before I let you jump, where are you hearing now that this was centered? We had heard originally that it was Hunterdon County, and is that
very
that's
close
still the
to
deal?
it. I'm seeing on this particular map that I'm looking at here, with 101 plots, it says here. It's putting the star, and it's not giving me the depth of this yet, too, because that matters as much. If they're really deep in depth versus, higher up towards the surface, that can make a difference as to how you feel it. Does it sway? Does it rumble? Does it go, back and forth or just up and down? But the epicenter seems to be over western Hunterdon, near Somerset, and southern sections of Warren County, in that area right there along that particular fault line.
Okay, Craig Allen, great to have. Thanks for coming on. Stay safe.
Yes, yeah. I'm going to put everything back on the table and back where they belong, because a couple things really rattled around.
Yeah, same here. I was saying my teleprompters in the studio were jumping up and down. Nothing that you want to see happen.
Right.
Hey, we thank you, Craig, so much. All right. So again, just to recap, a 4.7 or 4-point earthquake, moderate strength, epicenter Western Hunterdon County near Somerset. Again, we're getting calls and reports. This is being felt everywhere from Philly all the way to West Haven, Connecticut. Keep it here. Our coverage continues. So we have a CBS News special report in 2 minutes on the earthquake that has rattled New York City and way beyond, Tom Kaminsky.
And all right, well, let's start first off on the Cross Bronx. All lanes open now on the eastbound side. We had a crash around Webster Avenue. That's now cleared out of the way, and the travel lanes have been reopened, but very heavy delays there. At least that collision's been cleared, because we're about 10 minutes away from the gates opening at Yankee Stadium for the home opener. So we've got delays inbound GWB at about 30 minutes from 8095. It is going to be better from the other approaches. We have delays just at about 5 to 10 minutes at the Lincoln and Holland tunnels. Just checked with a friend of mine who's out in Morris County. Not any reports of any kind of damage out in that area, and I'm getting a look along Route 80 and Route 46. Things look to be in pretty good shape out toward Roxbury, out toward that stretch at Mount Arlington. We go over to the westbound side of the LIE. Let's go back over to Nassau County. We've got some delays with road work on the LIE right in for Lakeville Road, and then more delays as you continue from at least a Clearview on in for the Fairgrounds and in for Queens Boulevard. I'm Tom Kaminsky in the WCBS Traffic Center.
All right, we're going to go back to Craig Allen, who has some more information.
Yeah, very quickly on this. It seems like Tewksbury, Lebanon, New Jersey, in that general region. And from what I'm seeing now is that, as you said, it's being updated between 4.7 and 4.8, exceptionally strong for our particular region. And I'm getting different reports of the depth of the epicenter. In some cases, about 6 miles down. I don't think that is correct from the last thing I read. I think it's more likely to be somewhere in that 3 to 5 miles down particular depth. But nonetheless, that is not too far down. That's not too deep. So that's why we all felt it so strongly in our area. Okay, right. 4.8.
Craig, we thank you. And let's get more on the earthquake that has rattled our area and beyond.
CBS News special report. An earthquake has rocked regions of the Northeast, including New York and New Jersey. WCBS TV's John Elliott.
It was definitely an earthquake. 4.8 in Lebanon, New Jersey.
WCBS Radio's Brigitte Quinn.
Some of our teleprompters here in the studio, they were rattling away, and that's when we all knew that something was going on.
Again, an earthquake rattling the Northeast just a short time ago. There have been no reports yet of any injuries or damage. It could be felt far as away as Baltimore. CBS News special report. I'm Cammie McCormick.
All right. Well, there I was. And yes, our teleprompters were shaking here in the studio. And I looked out to the newsroom and everybody was just looking at each other as if to say, what the heck is going on? And being in New York, you never know what's going on. But this time it was an earthquake. And again, the numbers have been fluctuating a little bit between a 4.7 and a 4.8. The latest information of 4.8, as you heard Craig Allen talking about this, this is fairly strong and very strong for our area. We don't get those kind of numbers around here so much. Keep it here. More to come. Quick update for you on the earthquake that we all felt around 10:20 this morning. The numbers have been fluctuating on the strength from 4.7 to 4.8, but nonetheless, a strong earthquake, particularly for this area. And everybody's felt this. This quake might have been centered in New Jersey, Hunterdon, about 45 miles west of the city, 50 miles north of Philly. But we are getting reports that people have been feeling this as far away as West Haven, Connecticut. And we will have team coverage coming up at the top of the hour here on Newsline. Let's update you on money news from the CBiz Marks Paneth Business Desk. Bloomberg's Tracy Jonke. Did you feel it over at Bloomberg, Tracy?
We did, actually. It was a surprise. But I got to say, the tremors have done nothing to shake up Wall Street. If anything, it's looking better. The Dow up 222 points, the NASDAQ up 182, S&P's up 45. The new jobs data this morning showed the U.S. economy is powering ahead, creating more than 300,000 jobs for workers and dropping the unemployment rate to 3.8%. AI-generated content is proliferating on Facebook, and rather than remove the posts, which is its policy, Meta Platforms says it will label them starting in May. The policy change was recommended by its oversight board. With Money News at 25 and 55 on WCBS, I'm Bloomberg's Tracy Jonke.
All right, Tracy, we thank you. CBiz Marks Paneth, the New York area's premier accounting, tax, and advisory firm. More on the earthquake coming up. More on the earthquake coming up. Tom Kaminsky, got to ask about the traffic, though, too.
Let's check the traffic because we got a lot of folks heading toward Yankee Stadium for the home opener right now, and gates are going to be opening. We are seeing the delays now on the southbound side of the Deegan, right from Fordham Road on down to the stadium. Northbound side delays in through the 130s. Inbound side GWB, at least a 30-minute wait from 8095, a little better from the other approaches. Suffolk and Nassau, really no big problems on the LIE, northern or southern. We do have some midday road work on the LIE right around Lakeville Road. I'm Tom Kaminsky in the WCBS Traffic Center.
All right, more on the earthquake in just a moment, but the game weather, shower in spots today, wind chills only in the 30s for the rest of tonight. Breezy, feeling cold, mostly cloudy, the low near 40. Real feels closer to 30 degrees. Tomorrow, still chilly with a gusty wind, clouds, and a few breaks of sun for your Saturday. Wind chills reaching the 40s by the afternoon.
When you need to know why, when it matters most. This is WCBS 880 News.
A 4.8 magnitude earthquake rocks New Jersey and the surrounding areas. It has been felt everywhere from the city to West Haven, Connecticut, down to Philly. We're getting word from Essex, their fire department. They say that there are 3 buildings now that are in unsafe condition after this earthquake, with a couple of buildings actually leaning into each other. The FDNY says no injuries have been reported in the city. Mayor Adams has been briefed on the quake, and his spokesperson says we do not have any reports of major impacts. Team coverage coming up. WCBS, WCBS-FM HD2 New York.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. An unusual, unsettling feeling for New Yorkers.
We were in the building and it shook everything. No one knew what it was.
The U.S. Geological Survey confirms a preliminary magnitude 4.7 earthquake rattled through the metropolitan area. Odyssey's Tom Kaminsky.
This classic, the way an earthquake is described, that was sort of a rumble, but it just kept on building for a little bit. For maybe the first 5 seconds, sort of stayed stagnant that way. And then, as I said, it lasted maybe about 10 seconds and then just sort of died off.
It shook the earth as far south as Baltimore, north into the New York City suburbs and Connecticut. The USGS says it was centered 45 miles west of the city in Lebanon, New Jersey. So far, no reports of injuries or damage. Local airports are warning of delays. The Dow is up 221 points. This is CBS News.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get the parts and service you need fast from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Making news, breaking news, live interviews. This is Newsline with Brigitte Quinn on WCBS 880 News.
So we have 43 degrees and we have cloudy skies, and we thought we'd be talking about the eclipse and the Yankees game, but lo and behold, we had an earthquake this morning, struck at about 10:20. We all felt it here in the newsroom. The phone started ringing off the hook, and we're going to get to a couple of our reporters in just a moment, but want to let you know we have updated information from the FDNY about this 4.8 earthquake. This was centered in Hunterdon County in New Jersey, but felt all over our area and beyond, from West Haven, Connecticut, all the way down to Philly. The FDNY is now telling us that they are indeed responding to quote, numerous emergencies in all 5 boroughs related to this earthquake. We also got information into our newsroom from the authorities in Essex, in Newark, that they are on the scene of 3 buildings that they say are in unsafe condition after this earthquake. Obviously, that a lot closer to the epicenter. 2 buildings leaning into each other. Mayor Adams has been briefed, and again, let's get some on-the-scene reporting for you now. Let's go to Mamaroneck, and our Sean Adams is there. And Sean, what did you feel?
Brigitte, I was on the phone. I was setting up an interview. I was speaking with a gentleman up in Katona, so, to the north of where I am. I felt the vibration. The first thought, okay, what truck is rumbling down the street? The vibration continued. The building shook. The windows rattled. It didn't stop for several, I'd say maybe 10, 15 seconds or more. And at that point, I said to the gentleman, I said, I have to go. I think we're having an earthquake. He said, I feel it too. As soon as he said that, I knew this was an earthquake. And, we do get them from time to time, but this is really getting attention because the ones we typically experience over the past, 20, 30 years are much smaller. This was shaking of a different level. And I can tell you over the years, we do have faults in the area. And where this seems to be located, in northern New Jersey, Lebanon, White House Station, that's basically, so we're talking about the Route 78 corridor in the central part of northern New Jersey. And if you look at the maps, that we have to wait for the seismologist to confirm this, that would seem to indicate this is coming from the Ramapo fault system. So if you think about the Appalachian Mountains, they kind of, run diagonally through the region from New York across northern New Jersey, so we have the Ramapo Mountains there kind of cutting on a diagonal, and it just goes clear across the top and then into Pennsylvania. That's an active fault system, and you have a lot of little offshoots, and those are the ones we typically run around to over the years, 2 point something or whatever, and I've done those out in the Delaware area. In Westchester, there's a fault near the old Indian Point nuclear power plant. There's a fault that comes down and cuts across 125th Street in Manhattan and goes over into Queens. So the last little bit of seismic shaking, I think we had something it was either Long Island City or Astoria, but they're usually small. This got everybody's attention. So it'd be really interesting to see what the seismologists have to say. We've already put in a request to Lamont Doherty, Columbia's Earth Observatory. They always have their ear to the ground, and they're experts. They'll be able to spell this out for us and tell us what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, Sean, we thank you so much. They're live with us. And speaking of sort of quake history, if you will, this morning shaking had to make you think of August 23rd in 2011. An earthquake that jolted tens of millions of people from Georgia all the way to Canada, significantly larger. That was a 5.8, and it really rattled New Yorkers because it was 3 weeks before the 10th anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. Okay, let's continue our team coverage. Another one of our reporters on the line with us, Mac Rosenberg in Stamford. And we were all marveling at the fact that this was centered way down in Jersey and being felt all the way through Connecticut.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised to see that, Brigitte, but I was talking to people. My parents live down in New Rochelle. They felt it. I was hearing people in Yonkers that felt it, people really just all up the Sound Shore. And I was just on the phone with a friend in my apartment, getting ready to take a look at what kind of news might be happening today, what I might be covering. And then this was just one big vibration, 20 or 30 seconds. And I was sitting down and I could feel the apartment and the building shaking. And, you don't know what to think really in those situations. I don't remember the earthquake that you just mentioned. So I've never experienced anything like this that I can remember. And the first thing that I was thinking was just wind. And, there have been some really windy days in the last few weeks where you can hear the wind howling at night, here where I live. But there was nothing like this where the building was moving and shaking and vibrating. And I didn't really know how to react. I got up, I went out into the living room and things were falling off the coffee table. Went out to the balcony to see if anybody else was out on their balconies wondering what was going on. There was nobody. And by that point, it was over. And it was really less than a minute, I feel like, for most of us. And then you see the emails from the staff start to pour in. And that's when, you realize what this was. And
right.
I don't know, maybe it's a mind game, Brigitte. But now, looking out across at the other building in my complex at the balconies, they look just a little off balance. I don't know.
Hey, well, you know what? That might just be you seeing things, Mac, but we have been getting a report from Essex, New Jersey, that it seems some buildings might be in not the best shape. We are continuing to monitor, of course, in our newsroom. So far, the FDNY has been telling us no initial reports of damage. However, the FDNY at the same time saying it is responding to a number of emergencies. Okay, we want to bring you up to speed on the traffic. And I also heard reports, Tom, of when this happened, a lot of people started honking their horns in the city.
Well, I would imagine it definitely got everyone's attention. Certainly, we've been having everybody check in from all over the place. And I'm just getting word now at this point that the Holland Tunnel is temporarily closed. They are inspecting the Holland Tunnel right now. The word that we get from the Port Authority Police is that it is only New Jersey bound, but New Jersey bound is where they've been doing all of the overnight work every night, and that is all repair work from Hurricane Sandy. So the Port Authority Police are double checking the Holland Tunnel. As of right now, it is temporarily blocked going New Jersey bound. Actually, both directions. We're just getting word now that the Holland Tunnel at this point is shut down both ways for inspection. So haven't heard anything about the Lincoln Tunnel at this point, and the George Washington Bridge certainly has a lot of traffic on it to begin with. We've had at least a 30-minute wait. A lot of that traffic going over to Yankee Stadium for the home opener. So we've got delays right across the span. Lots of volume on the Major Deegan southbound side from the 230s right down to the stadium. The northbound side's heavy too, right off the RFK Bridge. We've had delays on the northbound side right up toward the stadium. Now, Suffolk and Nassau, not seeing any kind of really big problems on the LIE, northern or southern. We did have some midday road work on the LIE right around Lakeville Road. Still seeing delays there, and then more delays on the northern state getting in toward the Cross Island Parkway. We've got delays both ways on the Van Wyck in through Atlantic Avenue. But again, we are not hearing any kind of issues. But again, let's go back to the Holland Tunnel. We're seeing some delays there now in either direction. There is a temporary stop at the Holland Tunnel for inspection, just to make sure that there's no damage there at the inbound or outbound side of the Holland Tunnel. I'm Tom Kaminsky in the WCBS Traffic Center.
All right, let's get a check of the weather. John Stone, please.
Yeah, Brigitte, we're going to be keeping an eye on one thing here, too. That's the Passaic still up there at about almost 20 feet. It is expected to go down, so flooding should, not persist any further going forward. It is going to improve. What we have conditions-wise, well, not so great either. It's kind of dull and dreary with the cloud cover and also some showers around through the evening hours. By the time we get to tonight, it would just be cloudy. The high approaches 50, but wind chills will be in the 30s due to a blustery breeze, and that continues tonight, dipping down to 40, feeling closer to 30. That wind does not give up tomorrow. It'll be cloudy in general with a few sunny breaks, and a spotty shower once again can't be ruled out. 52 the high, wind chills in the 40s, and then Sunday some sun and clouds, and then we'll be looking at a high of 54. Right now it's 48 in Ozone Park, 47 Brentwood, and it's 45 in Midtown.
And our coverage continues now of this 4.7 magnitude earthquake. You might have heard your phone go off just a few minutes ago. Yeah, well, we heard a lot of that here in the newsroom. Everybody's phones bringing us the alert from the New York City emergency system. Let's go live to an expert now. Joining us on Newsline is Dr. Fullerin Kolawal, an assistant professor of structural geology at Columbia University. Doctor, good to have you here. Before we get into just how strong a quake this is for our area to experience, we were just talking with our traffic guy that they are now checking out the Holland Tunnel. Could a 4.7 magnitude quake affect a tunnel, affect big buildings?
Thank you very much for having me. It is possible, and this is more possible because of the type of rocks you might have underneath the tunnel. But I do like to think that the engineers have done a good job, done their due diligence to make sure that the fortification of the tunnel sits directly on bedrock instead of loose sediments. So in areas where tunnels are built on loose sediments, you can expect that during earthquake shaking, you can have what we call liquefaction, and that can make structures like big buildings and tunnels unstable, just because of the pressurization of fluid-filled sediments, within sedimentary units. But again, I do not think that will be a problem here. Because I think those tunnels are well established on the bedrock. And
all right. Oh, well, that's good to hear. So if any of our listeners right now, they have stopped traffic temporarily there, but we'll keep you updated on that. Okay, so let's talk about the strength of this earthquake. 4.7. We don't see earthquakes that strong around here that much, do we, Doctor?
Yes, we don't that much, but it's not uncommon. It's not impossible or unheard of. So we have the magnitude 5 earthquake, historically that happened in 1884, 5.3 actually, and it was felt widely across the entire region. The location is not well known. USGS puts it in the water south of the South Island, but we don't know what faults ruptured that earthquake. So we know that it is possible for faults within the region to support a magnitude 5.3 earthquake or a magnitude 5 level of earthquake, which requires you do need a fault of a sizable of a large size, some kilometers in length and deeply rooting to accommodate that kind of earthquake. So it's not impossible in the region. It has happened historically, but not in recent time.
All righty. Dr. Folarin Kalawal, we thank you, Assistant Professor of Structural Geology up at Columbia University. And we will have more Tom Kaminsky coming up, more on the weather. And our team of reporters have already fanned out, and we are working hard for you in the newsroom to get more information on this earthquake. Stay right here. We'll get to Tom and traffic in just a moment. All right, a little bit late, but let's get that traffic update from Tom Kaminsky. And Tom, you never thought you'd wrap up your Friday shift talking about an earthquake, I bet.
No, that certainly was not on the bingo card this morning, I will tell you that. But here we are, and the Holland Tunnel, we've just gotten a couple of updates here. The Holland Tunnel, the inspection work is now complete. The crews went through there, Port Authority police went through, so we are all clear now at the Holland Tunnel. There is a little bit of a delay through that area. The Lincoln looks good. The inbound GWB had at least a 30 to 45 minute wait from 8095. Now that's by and large Yankee traffic going over to the stadium, and of course the gates are open now. The game's starting at about 1:10 this afternoon, so we've got a lot of volume on the Major Deegan southbound from at least the area of the 230s on down, northbound right off the RFK Bridge. Now let's go back to Suffolk and Nassau. Just some delays on the LIE in the northern state, in for Glen Cove Road and Willis Avenue. Again, as we get to the Queens line. Just getting word now on New Jersey Transit. There are delays now system-wide on New Jersey Transit, up to 20 minutes both ways. All of those bridges are now being inspected, especially along the Northeast Corridor, the North Jersey coastline. So they are being inspected. Again, up to 20-minute delays as those inspections take place. Newark Light Rail is temporarily suspended because of a track inspection there. And also the Riverline Light Rail is also suspended in the Trenton area. Also, just getting word now from the Port Authority Police, the air train at Kennedy Airport is temporarily suspended as well. I'm Tom Kaminsky in the WCBS Traffic Center.
All right, let's update you on the weather next.
Sunny breaks early, and then it's going to be cloudy for the rest, also blustery and feeling chilly as a result of this wind. Some showers are also going to be around in the afternoon and evening, too, to deal with. High will be around 50, wind chills mainly in the 30s. Overnight, we're going to be breezy and dry with clouds, a low of 40, and then we still have some clouds around, a few sunny breaks and a spotty shower in the afternoon tomorrow, high temperature 52. Sunday, brisk with some clouds to start, then more sunshine in the afternoon, high 54.
All right. And right now we have 43 degrees, and we have more information for you about the 4.8 magnitude earthquake felt throughout the tri-state area and beyond, centered roughly in Lebanon, New Jersey, Hunterdon County. And we're getting word now that Governor Hochul is going to be holding a news conference coming up at the bottom of the hour, 11:30. And then at noon, we will be hearing from Mayor Adams. He had already been briefed about this, and his spokespeople had been saying that they had no reports of injuries. That's what the FDNY has been saying, although they have said that they have been responding to a number of emergencies. Keep it here. Our coverage continues. Well, just to keep you up to speed, we are continuing to follow the 4.8 magnitude earthquake centered in Hunterdon County, New Jersey, but a whole lot of shaking all over the tri-state area. Here's one person who felt it, Adam, in Hillside, New Jersey.
I live in South Jersey, about an hour and a half away from here. When I looked at my phone, my wife said, "Are you okay?" I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, and then you found out there was an earthquake about 10:20 this morning. Our coverage continues in just a moment. Want to let you know again that the governor is expected to have something to say at 11:30, followed by Mayor Adams at noon, and at 11:25. Let's update you on money news. See if there's any Wall Street reaction from the CBiz Marks Paneth Business Desk, Bloomberg's Tracy Jonke.
Amazingly, Brigitte, the Wall Street reaction is to send stocks even higher. We're looking at gains across the board of as much as 1%. The Dow up 227 points. The NASDAQ up 161. The S&P up 43 points. With money news at 25 and 55 on WCBS and Bloomberg's Tracy Jonke.
And a CBS News special report on the earthquake coming right up. We have traffic and weather together coming up and continuing coverage of the earthquake. And just want to let you know, traffic and weather is sponsored by the two-time Grammy Award-winning indie rock band Vampire Weekend, returning with their 5th studio album, Only God Was Above Us. Visit vampireweekend.com. Listen to Only God Was Above Us, available everywhere now. 11:28, traffic time. Tom Kaminsky, safe home.
Thank you, Brigitte. We're just getting word of, let's run down the mass transit side of things. New Jersey Transit up to 20-minute delays. System-wide, there are bridge inspections along all the lines, but especially the Northeast Corridor and North Jersey coastline. Newark Light Rail service, that is suspended system-wide because of track inspection. Also, the air train service at Kennedy and at Newark airports suspended, that because of ongoing inspection. We've had delays trying to get to the inbound side of the GWB. Well, first off, let's go back over to the Holland Tunnel. Everything there has been reopened. It had been temporarily blocked for some inspection by the Port Authority Police. That is now wrapped up, so the Holland Tunnel is getting a little bit better, but I'm still seeing some delays there at the Holland inbound side, especially at about 20 minutes. Even the outbound side, Canal Street's really, really heavy now. Lincoln Tunnel, I don't know if there's any inspection work going on, but suddenly outbound side of the Lincoln is extremely heavy, especially coming from that stretch going toward Dyer Avenue. So we've got delays there at least 20 to 30 minutes. The inbound side looks better. Inbound side GWB with at least a 30-minute wait from 8095. Better from the other approaches. Heavy right across the span. Had a collision on the Cross Bronx that was cleared, but again, a lot of that volume going toward Yankee Stadium on the southbound side of the Major Deegan. I'm Tom Kaminsky in the WCBS Traffic Center.
Well, the sunshine is poking through a little bit even more, but that cloud cover is still holding on too. We're also going to be looking at that potential of having a brief little light shower pass through as we get into the afternoon and evening. Today's high is going to be 50, but with a blustery wind. The wind chills are going to be dipping down into the 30s. Overnight will be cloudy, still blustery. The low of 40, feeling like it's closer to 30. Right now we're sitting in the mid to low 40s.
Your radio home for Mets baseball.
Put it in the books!
This is WCBS 880 News.
At about 10:20 this morning, an earthquake, 4.8, the epicenter in Hunterdon County, New Jersey, felt all over the tri-state. Governor Hochul expected to speak at any moment. You will hear her live here on 880. Mayor Adams speaking at noon. So far, the FDNY saying there have been no injuries, but a number of emergency calls. The Holland Tunnel okay after an inspection. You heard Tom Kaminsky reporting that. And again, this quake felt from Philly deep into Connecticut. We have team coverage with our reporters straight ahead on WCBS 880. But first, at 11:31, CBS News.
CBS News special report. There's not much that can stop New Yorkers in their tracks, but an earthquake has.
The ground started shaking, but I was thinking, is there a truck or is there something going on in the warehouse? And then you could see the pipes in the warehouse shaking and swaying back and forth. It was kind of unreal.
The U.S. Geological Survey reports a preliminary 4.8 quake. CBS New York's John Elliott.
It was actually, shaking and baking here in the studio, and we're up on the third floor in a massive building. So, a smaller building is definitely going to feel it as well.
It was centered about 45 miles west of Manhattan near Lebanon, New Jersey. Those few seconds of rumbling felt as far south as Baltimore and north into Massachusetts. There are train and airport delays. CBS's Chris Van Cleve.
The New York City airports are going to want to do some inspections. One, to make sure the buildings are structurally sound, and two, that there's no debris out on the tarmac or the runway.
No reports of injuries. CBS News special report. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
Breaking news on WCBS.
And our coverage continues of the earthquake from this morning. We're hearing from Governor Murphy saying, please do not call 911 unless you have an actual emergency. This is because we're talking about New Jersey, because that's where the epicenter was. This was in Hunterdon County, felt though in Philly, felt here in the city throughout the 5 boroughs, also Connecticut. And we have team coverage for you now on Newsline. Our chief meteorologist, Craig Allen, with us.
4.8. That is strong for our area. We have many fault lines in New Jersey that are, for the most part, inactive.
Yeah, but certainly active today. Let's get the scene in Westchester, Mamaroneck. Our reporter, Sean Adams, with us.
We do get them from time to time, but this is really getting attention because they're the ones we typically experience over the past, 20, 30 years are much smaller. This was shaking of a different level.
Yeah, it certainly was. We all felt it here in the newsroom. And as we say, even though this was centered way down in Hunterdon County in New Jersey, it was felt all the way through Connecticut, as far as West Haven. Our reporter, Mac Rosenberg, was in Stamford.
I've never experienced anything like this that I can remember. And the first thing that I was thinking was just wind. And there have been some really windy days in the last few weeks where you can hear the wind howling at night, here where I live. But there was nothing like this where the building was moving and shaking and vibrating. And I didn't really know how to react.
Yeah, none of us did. It really was something remarkable. We weren't sure what was going on, and then quickly we started getting reports. And then we got the report from the U.S. Geological Survey saying, yes, indeed, this was a 4.8 magnitude. And as you heard Craig explaining, that is a pretty strong earthquake for these parts. Want to let you know that we are just moments away from Governor Hochul. She is about to have some new information, we hope, on the earthquake, and we will take you live to that news conference in just a moment. Stay with us here at Newsline. On WCBS News Time, 11:37. Just want you to know that we are awaiting some comments from Governor Hochul. She is holding a news conference. We are expecting her really momentarily, and then we're expecting to hear from Mayor Adams. He is expected coming up at 12 noon to update us on the earthquake, the 4.8 magnitude quake that struck at about 10:20 this morning. And we are going to bring you another update on how this is affecting traffic. That's coming up in just a moment. In the meantime, let's just give you a couple of other headlines of stories making news today. The World Central Kitchen is saying an internal Israeli military investigation into the deaths of 7 of its aid workers in Gaza is not sufficient. It is calling now for an independent probe. 2 military officers in Israel were fired. The March jobs numbers coming in hotter than expected, 303,000 jobs added, and the unemployment rate changing little at 3.8%. The jobs figure is much higher than the monthly average of 231,000 during the past 12 months. The Fed has said all along that it is trying to balance getting inflation under control while keeping employment as strong as possible. WCBS News Time, 11:38. Traffic update time. Tom O'Hanlon, a lot to talk about.
Well, that's for sure. Good morning, Brigitte, and hello, drivers at the GWB. It's about a half hour into the city. We have people heading for the Yankee game. Now, the Lincoln Tunnel, 15 in, about 20 out. The Holland, you've got some residual delays. We had some there already, and they shut it down a while ago. It's open now, but they shut it down a while ago just to do some inspections. You can expect some of that around various parts of our infrastructure after the earthquake this morning. So with the Holland Tunnel, it's about 15 in. On the outbound side, it is slow from Canal Street. And NJ Transit rail system-wide delays now about 20 minutes both directions with bridge inspections underway following the quake. Newark Light Rail suspended system-wide due to track inspections. And Riverline Light Rail service suspended both ways between the Waterfront Entertainment Center and Trenton due to track inspections also following the quake. On the West Side Highway, some lingering delays with road work going on down around 58th Street. And the Cross Bronx Expressway starting to build now over near the Bronx River Parkway if you're going west. I'm Tom O'Hanlon in the WCBS Traffic Center.
All right, Tom, we thank you. And again, as we await Governor Hochul, let's bring you the updated forecast.
Going to be blustery and chilly for the next couple of days as we're going to start today with some sunshine breaking through the cloud deck and then more clouds build in with some showers around in the afternoon and evening. High reaches about 50. Wind chills will stay in the 30s, and then we're going to be closer to 30 degrees for that feel-like temp, but it is going to be a low of officially 40 under a cloudy sky. Tomorrow, we're cloudy with a few sunny breaks. Can't rule out some spotty showers in the afternoon, a high of 52, wind chills in the 40s. And then on Sunday, it's better with a cloudy start, some sunshine in the afternoon, a high of 54. Eclipse day on Monday, we're going to have some good views of that because it's going to be sunny and blue with a high of 63. Rinse and repeat Tuesday with high temps approaching 70.
All right, now we are nowhere near 70. It is cold out there. We have 43 degrees in the city, and we have, well, yes, as predicted, we went from sunshine to cloudy skies ahead of the Yankees home opener. It's cold there, too. Wind chills mostly in the 30s, and as you just heard, Tom O'Hanlon had a number of things to report, effects to mass transit and such because of this morning's earthquake. Again, a 4.8, and our coverage continues now.
Breaking news on WCBS.
Yeah, as we've been telling you, this was a 4.8 magnitude quake. It hit the New York City area, even though it was centered way down in Jersey, Hunterdon County. It was felt everywhere from Philadelphia throughout the East Coast, and we spoke with Tom Kaminsky about this earlier.
The only other incident that comes to mind a number of years ago was the one that was near Washington, D.C. The Washington Monument had been closed for a number of years as a result of that. I was near the Cape May area at that point, and I don't really recall feeling anything like this. But this was a definite rumble for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, and just to give you a little historical perspective here, the shaking stirring memories of the August 23rd, 2011 earthquake. Do you remember that one? It jolted tens of millions of people that time, all the way from Georgia to Canada, and that was obviously a stronger quake. That had been the strongest quake to hit the East Coast since World War II. That quake's epicenter, the 5.8, that was in Virginia. But again, this morning's quake, Hunterdon County, a lot closer to the city. The one back in 2011 really rattled us here in the New York area because it came 3 weeks before the 9/11 terror attack anniversary. And just to bring you a little more perspective, we're talking about this morning's New York City earthquake in the wake of the Taiwan earthquake. That was a devastating one, and we have a report this morning, an update on that earthquake from the BBC's Rupert Wingfield-Hayes.
People come here to Taiwan from all over the world to see this very famous mountain gorge. So some people are trapped in hotels, many others we think are actually out in the open, out on hiking trails in places that are very remote.
Yeah, that's right. And the death toll so far there, 10, more than 200 aftershocks since the 7.4 quake. Now, just to once again to recap for you, tell you what's going on. Because of this 4.8 epicenter quake, there had been some concerns about the Holland Tunnel, but that's okay now. And it looks like Governor Hochul is starting. Let's take a listen.
I've not felt the magnitude of an earthquake of this level since about 2011. Actually, I was in Washington, D.C. at the time, and my apartment when I was in Congress was severely damaged. We felt those effects all the way up to Buffalo, New York. So these are wide-scale possibilities. This is one of the largest earthquakes on the East Coast occur in the last century.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Any meeting with the legislative leaders today?
All right, we're not going to stay for any questions about the legislature. You just heard the recap there, and we will have more and let you know all the information that Governor Hochul just imparted. We have our own Marla Diamond on the line. She joins us live on Newsline. Marla, exactly where are you, and where were you when it happened?
So, Brigitte, I'm right outside Atlantic Terminal in downtown Brooklyn, next to the Barclays Center, where we've been speaking to people who were completely shocked by what happened, of course. Now, I will say that when this happened around 10:20, I was on the BQE and on Ocean Parkway, headed out to Brooklyn, so I didn't feel a thing. But my phone started lighting up from my husband who works in Staten Island. I have a friend who works in Midtown. They all texted earthquake, earthquake, earthquake. They couldn't quite believe what it was, and I was surprised myself. But here in downtown Brooklyn, everyone felt it. We spoke to a fire department, to a firefighter, actually walked by, eager to share his story. He was down at the Metro Tech Plaza having its annual physical, and he said that his legs started wobbling like they were dancing the cha-cha, is the way he described it. And he looked at his fellow firefighters and they looked at him and he's like, I don't know what this is, but I'm getting out of here. So even in the fire department, there was a level of concern, but they quickly found out that it was an earthquake. Of course, the city's alert did not go out until 11 o'clock, I believe, is when everyone heard it on their cell phones, which was well after the event. So people, some say they did know what was happening. Others said they had no clue and were very scared. I also spoke to 2 women from Trinidad who say that this does happen frequently in their home country. So as soon as it happened, they knew it was a tremor and they weren't surprised, but they were a little shocked that this is happening in New York City. Brigitte?
Yeah, I think we all were. And, talking about our phones going off, as the governor was speaking just a matter of moments ago, our phones went off again, warning of aftershocks. Our coverage continues in just a moment. At 11:58, Tom O'Hanlon, some news about the airports, right?
Yes, indeed, Brigitte. At JFK, as we heard from the governor just a little while ago, a full ground stop at JFK. They've been inspecting the runways just to make sure there aren't any cracks from this morning's earthquake. Now, at LaGuardia, the latest report is about 15 minutes or less in or out of the airport. And Amtrak also now has some speed restrictions in effect as needed. They are inspecting the tracks. And speaking of trains, NJ Transit, rail service system-wide, subject to up to a 20-minute delay both ways, with bridge inspections continuing following the earthquake. And Newark Light Rail suspended system-wide due to track inspections, also because of the quake. Now, the inbound George Washington Bridge, boy, is that slow from 80-95. Looks like at least a solid half hour. And people are heading to the Deegan because they're going to the Yankee game. And if you're heading down the Deegan, delays start about right around 230th Street. I'm Tom O'Hanlon in the WCBS Traffic Center.
All righty, Tom, 44 degrees. We have cloudy skies in the city. And, well, there is a Yankees game going on today. Never mind the earthquake. Blustery, chilly for the game. Mostly cloudy, a shower in spots, but nothing like the rain that we've had earlier this week. Wind chill temperatures in the chilly 30s for the rest of the day. And then breezy and cold tonight. Real feels down to about 30. For your Saturday, some breaks of sun. Still some spotty showers around on Sunday. Clouds to start, then more sunshine. A nicer afternoon on Sunday.
When you need to know why, when it matters most. This is WCBS 880 News.
At about 10:20 this morning, a 4.8 earthquake centered in Hunterdon County in New Jersey. The president has just released a statement saying the White House is in touch with federal, state, and local officials as they learn more. The state's Emergency Operations Center is open. Governor Hochul on just a few moments ago saying, "We are masters of disaster." They have not identified any life-threatening situations, no reports of damage. However, she is cautioning to be on the lookout for any sorts of aftershocks. JFK in Newark, the ground stop is over. Service has resumed. WCBS-FM HD2 New York.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Progressive Insurance.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. An earthquake in New York.
It was kind of unreal. Our house was shaking for like 10 to 20 seconds.
U.S. Geological Survey confirms a 4.8 quake rumbled through the metropolitan area about an hour and a half ago.
My whole family group chat actually was blowing up my phone saying, "What was that? Was that an earthquake?" Then my friend from Delaware texted me and said that she felt it too. Everyone was feeling it.
It was felt as far north as the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border. Odyssey meteorologist Craig Allen.
This was not just, rattling. There was a little bit of swaying, and everything that you had laying around was really back and forth. So it was strong.
It was centered just west of the city. There are traffic, train, and airport delays in New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia as officials check for potential damage. New York Governor Kathy Hochul.
We are going to be reviewing all potentially vulnerable infrastructure sites throughout the state of New York that is critically important in the aftermath of an event like this.
So far, no reports of injuries. Hochul says President Biden has been briefed.
The buzzer sounds, and the New York Knickerbockers are going back to the NBA Finals.
When New York sports happens, talk about it here. The Fan, 101.9 FM, and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Alrighty, BT and Sal back on the Fan. I'm trying to read this in real time.
What the hell's going on around here?
This is absolutely insane. So literally about 30 seconds before I put my headsets back on to come back from break, Hoff came over and said that there was an earthquake in the Bronx, and it was felt in Manhattan as well. I'm just reading this right now. I go to Twitter for the quickest reaction, and it looks like it's real. I guess I don't know which building. I definitely don't want to be irresponsible with this and just start guessing and throwing stuff out. That's the worst thing you could do. And I also don't want to minimize it, so I guess I don't want to say a ton, except I don't see anything in terms of fatalities or buildings crashing, thank God. But apparently we just had an earthquake that was felt in the Bronx and Upper Manhattan.
And even, I guess, at the studios. Who was back there, Hoff, for us? Rosie, you're back there running on board. You felt the earthquake in our building back at 345 Hudson?
Yes, I did.
Like legit felt it?
Yeah, the building, it was a light shake for a good 3 to 4 seconds.
Wow. Okay, let's see. I mean, I remember.
Jeez.
I was actually I was in one. I remember when I was working in San Francisco. It was like 2012. Yeah, and I was actually on the air. And it was like mid-sentence, and I don't know what it was on the Richter scale, but I certainly have no idea if this one seems, thank God, small enough where maybe it didn't even register. I don't know. I want to stay in my lane. I'm not a meteorologist or whatever.
Right. It's one thing when you start talking about injuries to players, or
if it's going to rain. But I mean, earthquakes is not exactly my expertise here. But I remember I was mid-sentence here, Sal. I was mid-sentence, and it was frightening enough where I was legitimately startled. I feel like it was a 5-ish or a 4.5, and I remember my old partner who used to play for the 49ers, he was laughing because he was kind of used to it. And I remember another time I was in San Francisco, I was upstairs, Jen was downstairs, I was laying down watching, I think it was the A's. They were putting me to sleep. And I felt another earthquake. And when you feel it, you feel it. So I don't know, and I certainly respect how Rosie characterized it, but so I just tell you what I heard. And do you have anything new?
Yeah, well, somebody from NBC News tweeted out magnitude 5.5.
5.5?
5.5 earthquake strikes greater New York area, New Jersey region.
5.5 is fairly.
That's where what do you mean?
Fairly strong. All right, so it isolated from Lebanon, New Jersey. That's where it originated from. In New Jersey, and according to, was that CNBC or NBC News? I didn't hear the affiliate.
Somebody from
NBC.
Let me just get
Said it was a 5.5.
Quintanilla here.
Okay.
24 years at CNBC and NBC News.
Yep, that's him.
Magnitude 5.5. Strikes greater New York area, New Jersey
Okay,
region.
wow. All right, well, listen, if we'll be searching for this, and we're just going to keep going with the show here. That is absolutely bonkers. Wow. This certainly feels like a crazy transition on the things you did not expect to
Pete
talk
Caldera,
about.
who covers the Yankees here for I believe, the Bergen Record. We certainly felt the ground shaking a few minutes ago at Yankee Stadium, but BP went on without interruption. How about that?
This is one of the most bizarre 2 or 3 minutes I've ever had in my radio career on this. So, let's go. Let's get on with the show. All right, but we'll keep our eyes on this, there's no doubt.
You don't want to talk more about the earthquake?
I don't know what else to say.
I'm getting bombarded with texts.
What do I say? I told you everything I know. I can fit everything I know, not literally, but figuratively in a thumbnail. That's how little I know about earthquakes. But there it is. All right.
People sending me this now.
No.
The earthquake, the wrestler?
Yeah. Well, in the theme of the show, Sergeant Slaughter was in studio yesterday. Now Sal's getting texts from his buddies and tweets with pictures of Earthquake, the former wrestler. All right. So